Hello and welcome to the Daily Atheist Morning Show. It is Monday, March 18th, 2020. How are you guys doing? Did you have a good weekend? Did you survive? I survived. um, I've been building a new show. Hope you can hear me. Oh, yeah, looks like you can hear me. Well, for now. So I've got guest host Damien Marie.
Hey,
He is
how
joining
you
me
doing?
this morning. Good morning, Damien. How are you doing today?
Doing good.
Wonderful. And let's see. I've also got I got to do the glasses thing this morning. I got new stuff going on. I got the president of Canadian Atheist has joined us this morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, Randolph. Good morning, Randolph.
Thanks
How
for
you doing?
thanks. Great. Thanks for having me on your program.
You're very welcome. I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while. We finally got you. That's
Yeah,
nice.
I've been busy. I appreciate your patience.
Did you guys have a good weekend?
Oh yeah,
Both of
yeah.
you?
It's been a busy one.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you can't see it. If you follow the show, you've watched the show. I've changed all the graphics, so hope everybody can hear me okay. I hope you can hear our guests okay. Looking, nobody's complaining yet, so that's a good sign. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
Hey, Randolph, if you don't mind, Damien has been on my show fairly regular, so my folks know him. If you don't mind, could you kind of introduce yourself and tell people about what you got going on?
Okay, I'm Randolf Richardson with the Canadian Atheists. I'm the founding president. We're concerned about human rights and the encountering the vilification of atheism and atheists throughout the world. So we work toward trying to normalize atheism because there are a number of people in the world today who still think that atheism is not a normal thing. And I don't really see it as not normal to, I see it as normal to not believe in things. But we have a bit of an uphill battle. So that's where we're at.
True enough, yeah. Um, Let me just quickly give a shout out to the people in the chat. Good morning, Chris, the atheist pastor. He wants you to believe, he would have you believe that he's in Australia. We're not
I
buying
thought he
it.
said he was a Hindu one time.
Yeah, you just
That was
can't,
his
you got to watch
conversation
him.
with
He's
First
shifty.
Republicans. Yeah.
And then Ease from Easeism Works Studios is here. Easeism Works Studios. I said it wrong. He's awesome. He's got some cool art. He does art stuff. And then let's see, John Anthony is here. Doc Fearsome. Good morning, Doc. How are you doing? And Daniel Peterson. Hi, Daniel. Looks like the room is filling up fast. So
Right. I
let me know.
recognize some of those names.
Do you? Yeah. 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 And more will show up. It's a new time, so that's that'll slow us down a little bit here. I'm looking. Everything seems to be working okay. The world hasn't exploded yet. So, I we had talked to you about being on the show. I guess maybe 2 months ago, something like that. It's
Yeah,
been a
there's a lot of
while.
planning in this.
Yeah, and of course I moved it back this week, an hour this week. So maybe that'll be easier for folks like you over on the West Coast. Because 5 o'clock in the morning is a tough road to hoe. I got
Well, the time wasn't a problem for me.
okay.
The challenge for me was just that I had a lot of things going on and other things scheduled. So
Mm,
it's
I
yeah.
see. I see.
So
Well,
I
it
appreciate your
it
patience
actually
with me
has
on that.
been it's been a problem for a lot of folk though. So I
Okay.
hopefully our people can gather up. Damien,
Yeah.
how's it going, brother?
Yeah, I wanted to address one of the things that he mentioned about people not really liking atheism. Well, it's actually worse than not liking. There's, I think, 7 countries in the world where an atheist can go to jail or even possibly get harmed or tortured because of being an atheist or even killed. In fact,
Actually,
And Saudi Arabia actually lists us as terrorists. So
well,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a terrorist because I'm a rationalist and empiricist, and I want things like reason and evidence for what's worthy to believe.
so my understanding of Saudi Arabia's laws, which I think it was Richard Dawkins' foundation that originally reported it, if I recall correctly, that law is atheists are all classified as terrorists. I should say misclassified,
Yeah,
and just because they don't believe in any deities, that's us. And the sentence is not only just torture, but it's like daily torture until the day of execution. And how long that period of torture goes on for, I suspect, is probably determined by the courts. And it's a shame that they're even called courts, because they don't have a sense of what justice is there. Everything's ruled under Sharia. I'm not too happy with the United Nations either, because they made Saudi Arabia chair of the Human Rights Commission for I think 2 years in a row at least. And the big problem there is one of the most fundamental issues I have with it there is Saudi Arabia has not even signed on to the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. And so, that should have been a non-starter. It shouldn't have been allowed in the first place. So I lost a lot of confidence in the United Nations because of that. They ended up writing some kind of a letter explaining their decision, which didn't wash with me. It's nonsense. It shows me that the United Nations, unfortunately, cannot be trusted. They did have a good reputation before that, but they've destroyed their own reputation by bringing hypocrisy into it.
Yeah, and they don't even just violate the rights of atheists; they violate the rights of women and other religious minorities, and their general people in general, even ones that believe in Islam. They still torture and hurt people. I mean, they're ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's terrible. I know people who've left Saudi Arabia, and we also get people contacting us from countries like Saudi Arabia on a somewhat regular basis, asking for help getting out of the country. But they're having to do it very carefully, because they're in a situation where if anybody found out, including close friends and family members, or even a spouse, they could end up getting executed for it, tortured and executed. So it's a very serious thing. Or in some countries, they would just get put in through the court system, their so-called court system, and get tortured at the very least. There's no respect for human rights. One of the defenses that they bring up a lot of the time is that they have signed on to the Cairo Accord, and they consider the Cairo Accord to be superior to the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. I disagree. The Cairo Accord is there just to bolster and set up a foundation for bringing in Sharia law, which is one of the most horrific systems in the world. They start off. It's a 5-step process. I'll just quickly look it up here. They start off with it's 4 things that they do. They interpret the following. First, they use the official doctrine of Islam, the Holy Quran, to try to resolve disputes and whatever else people have been charged with. If that fails, then the second step is to go to the Sunnahs, the philosophies and actions of Prophet Muhammad. And then the third one is ijma, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, the collective reasoning by consensus among Muslim scholars. So they're using scholars instead of having actual judges and whatnot looking at this. There's no concept of the veil of ignorance or anything else in there. They just lack that kind of insight. And if that fails, then they go to the fourth, which is the Qiyas, Qiyas. It's individual reasoning by analogical deduction. So none of this stuff even remotely resembles a fair and equal justice system by any stretch of the imagination. And I haven't even gotten into the weird concepts that they have that one man is equal to 2 women, and that kind of misogynistic inequality, and the anti-feminist kind of approach that they have.
That has always been a big thing for me, was how anti-woman they are.
Christianity is too.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are so many things. As I'm going through the Bible, there are so many opportunities in there where they're going, look, here's why you need to be in modesty. Here's, just in Genesis, they're talking about the sons of God came down and took women. Well, if the sons of God can't resist women, what are us mortal men supposed to do? You need to cover your hair and cover your body. I mean, it starts early, and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, I'm convinced that especially children don't need religion growing up. Our kids were never indoctrinated. I've always been an atheist, meaning I've never believed in any deities. My parents were quite good about this. My dad is a skeptic, always has been. He's got some background in psychology and philosophy and various sciences, and then he was able to use that in his career throughout his life. They're retired now. My mom was a Gnostic, but she didn't bring any of that up into our childhoods. So because my parents had decided that we would be making our own determination on this stuff later on in life. So came out with a clear slate. I was very fortunate with that. So my wife and I have done the same with our kids. But, you know, the topic of religion comes up more in the forefront nowadays. So it's something that we end up talking about. But both of our kids, they know if they chose to be in a religion, that would be entirely their choice. And we would certainly have questions, but we'd support them. They've both chosen to. They've not made any choice, is where I'm going to leave that. Right. I like to say it that way instead, because I think that more accurately depicts the situation, because they're not presented with having to make a choice, which is why I'm not saying that they've chosen. I'm saying that they've not chosen anything.
Right. I understand. I kind of have the same thinking that, to me, I think that you should be honest with kids. Even if you're a religious person, you have the right to say what you think. The difference is, I don't think you have the right to force them to choose to believe. I mean, that's
right.
I think the same goes for everybody, adults too. Yeah.
Oh, well, definitely adults.
And not all these cult-like organizations are religious either. There's something called the Landmark Forum that I was fairly recently invited to by somebody. So I looked into it, and I found out that what they do in the first presentation is they have their attendees write down a list of the things that they regret in their lives. And then you have a sense where this is going, don't you? and then at some point in the presentation, after their lectures and all this, everybody stands around in a circle around each participant, and they yell and scream at them very abusively, very angrily, and the goal is to make them cry. And once they get them to completely break down, then they turn around and lift them up all the way, so as high as they can possibly be, which there's some psychologists tell me that if someone didn't have psychological problems before that, some people probably would afterwards. And it's, to me, this is really not a healthy way to go with things. I also know some atheists who've been, and anti-theists even, who've gone to some churches which have done this kind of routine, and they all walk around in a circle around him and bark at him all their kind of crazy nonsense, or they challenge him or ask him questions and try to lay guilt trips on him. He was already hardened against it, so nothing's going to happen with him. But
right.
I can see somebody who's not expecting it and perhaps has not been developing the mental fortitude to be their own person could be convinced to go along with these things.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of religion uses mind control techniques. I mean, constantly. Just like the fact of how a preacher talks. You know, we're getting the blood of Jesus. Well, to me, I'm just going to say is that what we don't realize, in a sense, if we took off what they're saying, it's like, go ahead into a deep trance. Start to feel yourself draining. Let the you die. Let the us complete. You know, feel us in your mind. In a sense, that's what they're doing. They're doing almost like hypnosis,
right,
or a form of, in a sense, projection. When you kind of push on to people, and then they kind of like, don't you feel good now? I can feel it off you. You feel so great. In fact, you don't even feel the pain in your body, do you? And the person's like, no. I mean, it's because, almost like the Force, in Star Wars, when you talk to people in a certain way, it makes them feel. It's just like they did a study where people generally are attracted to people that are attracted to them. Not saying everyone, but it's more common. Like if you didn't ever think about someone and someone walks up and says, "You're beautiful," you start to see them as more attractive. It's just this natural social thing.
Chris, the atheist pastor, does a wonderful job of he'll because he used to be on the road to become an actual pastor, so he'll demonstrate that cadence, how you speak, how you talk, and I've always thought I'd make a great pastor. I'd be like, come on, you can feel it flowing through you, and just get them all worked up.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah. Sounds
It
like a
doesn't
lot of
even
fun.
matter. Well, it doesn't even matter. It's a con kind of a game. It doesn't matter what you do, whether you're selling, squeegees for someone's car, or you're trying to promote religion. In a sense, it's the same. That's why it's the cadence. It's the same little mental manipulation you're doing.
I think those kind of Sith mind tricks, we'll call them, instead of Jedi mind tricks.
Yeah, Sith mind tricks. Yeah, there you go.
They're probably, it's not the approach I'd want to use, because I know that the people who I'd be using them on, if I was hypothetically to do that, at some point down the road, if they figured out that they had been tricked, I would lose their trust. Even if they're far away, I'd lose their trust. I don't want that to happen. I think these people, I wonder if they even think about that when they're running these kinds of cons. And probably a lot of them just don't care. There's probably some psychopathy going on there. I'm not sure. You've done some counseling before. What is your perspective on that?
Well, my perspective is that often religion has a mental disorder. I would say it's almost like fond du lac, or what's called induced delusional disorder. It's almost like when people say mob mentality or groupthink. It's where you kind of lose you and you kind of get in the moment of everyone else's feelings. It happens specifically with someone who has a close relationship generally with a schizophrenic. Well, if that schizophrenic, like you were saying, is a pastor, then the whole congregation kind of picks up that schizophrenic thinking, and they might actually start feeling like they're seeing things and hearing things. But it's because
saying schizophrenia. I was saying psychopathy. But
go
ahead.
Well, with psychopathy, different kinds of psychological issues could be going on. I was just making a comment.
Okay, yeah.
A generalized one to me is induced delusional disorder. It's an actual disorder by the World Health Organization. It basically is that almost like groupthink, like I said, that when you're in an environment where a whole bunch of people are thinking we're social beings, and so we just start picking up those social clues, and then it's probably some part of evolution. Like, if someone else is scared and they're 10 people away and they start running, we don't even know. We didn't hear, we didn't see, but we see enough people running. It probably behooves us to just start running. And it's that kind of to me, a social thing that happens like in religion. If everybody around you, just like if you've ever been to a movie theater, it's different than watching at home. If you watch at home and there's no soundtrack, like laugh tracks and all that, the movie might be different. But if you hear people scared, you hear the people, it actually makes the movie experience different.
Yeah, you're all together. That's a good point. Yeah, and that's kind of missed with new technology these days. Everyone's sitting at home and just watching what they're watching without anybody else around. It's I think that is missed. I never thought of that before. That's a good point. I wonder if people are feeling more lonely nowadays.
Yeah, but Chris is a master because he's made a program where there's multiple people. So.
Yeah. Well, something else that's also going on with all this coronavirus thing, then people are more likely to stay at home and seclude themselves socially from other people. Carry on.
Yeah, hopefully this is just temporary.
Of course.
In Canada here, our government earmarked $1 billion toward dealing with the coronavirus, and 1/5 of that, $200 million, goes into scientific research. It just announced this last week, I think, or maybe a week and a half ago. And so far, just last week, some Canadian scientists were reporting that they have made progress toward developing a vaccine for coronavirus. So this is quite promising. And apparently some other people around the world have been making some progress in this area too. So the reports from the Canadian one look the most credible to me, because they're talking about the various methods, scientific methods they've been using, like heating up and killing and bringing it back to life and all this kind of stuff in the lab, which I'm not familiar directly with how vaccines are made, but this sounds technical, and it sounds like they're going through some kind of a process to get there. Because I know they need to have a dead version or a limited functioning version of the illness, of the disease, to to inject into us, so our immune system can practice with it instead of a real sparring partner. We're just practicing with a punching bag, and then next time around we have a better idea. Our immune system a better idea what to do to deal with it. The anti-vaxxers are coming out lately again, though. So
I know, right? I know. Ugh.
I put up a poll recently for asking people if they would get the vaccine when it comes out, assuming it's going to come out. And I put 4 options: yes and no for pro-vax people, and yes and no for anti-vax people. And the very promising thing to see is about 96% or so all voted for the first one, that yes, they would get it, and they're pro-vax. What I found very interesting is that a very small percentage of the anti-vaxxers said they would also get it. So, but it's nice that the number is overwhelmingly in the high 90s there for percent-wise for people who would get the vaccine. It's very promising to see that.
You know, I thought it was funny. One of the first things that I know, because I am already secluded from the rest of the world, so I heard about the vaccine and blah, or not the vaccine, but the virus, and I'm like, okay, it's way over there, and I'm like, okay, then it's not so way over there, it's over there, and then it's like over here now, and then it's at the VA here in this town where I'm at. And first I just kind of ignored it, and then wow, all of a sudden it's upon us, and then there's the blame. The U.S. government is blaming. Have you heard the conspiracy theories? Is it the Chinese people who set it upon their own people for population control? Or was it the American army that set it off onto the Chinese people for whatever freaking reason? I don't know.
The craziest one I've heard that stands out to me is they're blaming the Democrats for secretly hiring the Chinese to release it in a city where people normally travel to the U.S. and they'll carry it, and then in the U.S. they'll get it, and they're going to target Republicans so there'll be less Republicans voting in the upcoming election. That's one of the craziest ones I've heard.
Yeah, something else I've heard is that, and this was the wife talking about it, that they're going to try and push through laws or something, I don't remember vaguely, where the medical people they'll be limited, or they won't be required to have personal protection. They're stripping down the requirements of personal protection that the medical people responding to this can have or need to have, partly because there's not enough of it, right? But
and they don't need to make a law for that.
It almost seems, I don't remember, I need to ask the wife about it, but it almost seems like they're trying to make it more likely that the healthcare providers will get it too. It's just, I don't know. It's just,
I think
our government's reaction has been horrible at every turn.
I think the healthcare providers tend to worry about that, and they take the best precautions as they can. If they're going to put in some kind of a law that's going to limit what they can do, that would just be political suicide.
But it wouldn't be a surprise.
No.
Well, I know.
I know what's not a surprise too is that all these different conspiracy theories just remind me of the same thing that we do with religion. When we don't understand something and when we're scared, we just start making shit up. Because it feels better to act as if you know, because then you feel more comfortable. You feel more safe. At least I know. Yeah. But you really aren't knowing anything. So.
I do wonder if some of the people making those things up are just pranksters. I see it quite a bit with the flat Earth communities. I think about half of them are only joking. Only half of them are serious. For the flat Earth people.
I heard, the flat. I know. I heard that the Canadian people, there had been some Canadians who were working on a vaccine. Yep. And there was a kind of a joke about it. Once they shut down ice hockey, Canadians went to town to find the. But then I also heard that the Australians were working on a cure. I heard that the Germans had a cure, and then I'm hearing all these things people going, "Don't believe what you hear. There's not really a." And then Trump, Germany said they had a cure, I think, or a vaccine or something, and Trump is like, "Hey, give it only to us." So there's a lot of weirdness going on.
There's something in Brisbane. There's these 3 wise men who've done this, but from what I see, what I read so far, it doesn't look too specific. They're just talking vaguely about, and I wonder about these things. It seems a bit of a red flag to me when somebody says, "Oh, I've got all this, but I'm not going to tell you how it works."
Yeah.
Right.
Convenient.
Yeah.
So
maybe more reports will come out and they'll actually be explaining more. So
maybe
I hope that they do, because that would help everybody. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm not one of those people who looks forward to the end of the world. You know what I mean? I'm not really. I don't sit there and go, yeah, I hope this is a world-ending virus or none of that. I mean, I hope it all blows over and
It's sad.
Yeah, I know.
It really is sad.
I would be more likely to root for big, large meteoroid, 2020 asteroid, whatever, than a virus kind of thing.
No.
Anyway, I've seen people do that, and it's just I just don't. I want it all to blow over. Fortunately, in my case, because people are starting to work from home and they're, it's more likely to be good for my show because people are more likely to watch it. Yeah, the wife pointed that out yesterday. I'm like, get sick, folk, go home. Watch the daily. Anyway, so Randolph, about the atheist stuff and the Canadian atheism, I've been running the show, this new setup, and forgive me if you already mentioned it back at the beginning.
Oh, it's okay.
How long have you been doing this? Yeah, okay, sorry. I got stuff going on, so
that's no problem. It's okay. Repetition doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Let's see. I founded it probably 4 years ago, something like that. I'm not remembering offhand because it's a bit of a blur with so much going on. But we are a fairly new organization. If that answers your question, I could certainly look it up and give you an answer. But I know it's within the last 3, 4, or 5 years.
Right. Well, I was wondering,
I've been involved in atheism a lot longer than that. Go ahead.
No. That's what I was really trying to get at. How long you've been into it? What got you into being an activist?
It came about slowly. It wasn't suddenly a switch came on or anything like that. It's just over the years, people would ask me things, and religious people would ask me questions, and I was gradually finding more and more. It was like, well, why are they asking me in this way? Like this is ridiculous. Like, come on, you've got this story that you really like, or this religion or this group of people you really like for whatever your reasons are, which is fine, but it's like I'm being pressured to go into those things. Right. Or one of the biggest things they'll do is they'll say, oh, you're not really an atheist, you just think you are, or those sorts of things. And what my wife had highlighted years ago was that it's vilification. And I thought about that, and yeah, she's right on about that. So that's why I call it vilification. It's exactly what it is. They say, all right, you don't believe in a deity. What's wrong with you? No, this is not the case. There's nothing wrong with me for not believing. I'm, and they'll ask me why. I say, well, I don't have a reason. Well, when did you decide not to believe? Well, I've never made that decision. I've just never believed, and that's the way it is, And I try to, and I think I'm just going to stay with that. I'm just not going to make the decision on it.
I've had people cross themselves when I told them I was an atheist. This is back when I first started.
I've seen that too.
Down in
or they look shocked. Oh no!
Yeah.
What, are you going to be okay?
Or they'll soften their tone. They're like, "Oh, you poor creature."
When I was a little kid, my mom, I was in the grocery store helping my mom with shopping, and somebody we knew came up, and like an acquaintance, and then she asked me, and I said, well, I don't believe in any gods or what it is, gods back then. I just use the word deities now because I think it's important not to exclude goddesses in this question.
Right. Oh,
yeah. And so she said, oh, that means you're a Protestant. So,
okay.
Being a little kid, not really knowing what that means, I thought, oh, so this is what Protestant means, and then so I called myself a Protestant, not knowing what it really was. But then, of course, I realized, after I looked into it, this is not right. She lied to me. What is going on here? So she lost my trust, basically. If I ever saw her again, I was thinking as a kid, I have to be, I can't believe what she tells me. So, kids, I think people will tell kids stuff more openly and freely, assuming that the kids are just going to trust them. But I notice a lot of people seem to underestimate the intelligence of children.
Yeah,
it's even happened with my kids. They've noticed this with adults at school or elsewhere, and the kids talk about this stuff, and they know. So it's like, don't underestimate your kids. They're usually a lot smarter than you think they are.
That's true.
Yeah, really.
And I've long been to the notion that it's child abuse. Yeah, child abuse. It depends on how hard they push it. I mean, it's just absolutely.
Oh, you're talking about the religion. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
I was just talking about underestimating kids. What?
Oh, yeah. Well, again, I'm distracted. I'm like, they're talking about kids. I have an opinion.
I was thinking, is Chris some kind of extremist here? What's going on?
No. Well, no, I don't think so. Maybe. Well, I'll tell you, when the civilization collapses, those kids are going to be tasty. Drop them in the freezer first thing.
Oh, no, don't. Yeah. Oh, there's another thing comes up that I find I don't really care for. People are free to say whatever they want, but I find it very peculiar when people are saying they're going to eat babies. Oh. Yeah.
I don't do that.
I've never found it funny. A lot of people see humor in it. I just don't, because they joke about that. And I understand they're making fun of some ridiculous claims that some religious people have made in the past. I prefer to take those things on seriously and just say, no, this is not acceptable. Don't do this vilification, right? So.
Right.
Well, yeah, I agree. Just like if they said atheists rape people, I wouldn't say, oh, I rape people and it's funny, haha, because I just, no.
Yeah.
I like what you're saying.
Yeah, so take it pretty seriously. It's we need to be, I think it's important to set examples for people to say, here's what we're like. We're not like those things that you think they are. We won't even joke about them. This is the way we are. I'm not saying everybody should do this. Everyone's got their own style. It's just not the style that I want to use. So.
Right. Well, Christopher Hitchens, the great Christopher Hitchens,
yeah, one of my favorites.
Laughing at something is the first form of blasphemy.
Share his first name.
So it's just a different strokes for different folks. I'm one of those who I embrace it. I have regular photographs that mock these things that I post. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and get into an argument with you about the Weather 2s or Y4s. Really, I feel there's a need for both.
I don't do it. I'm not saying you shouldn't.
No.
I'm an advocate for freedom of expression, after all.
You said that to begin with.
I have to take that seriously too.
I believe you said that. Yeah. So totally. Well, there's both. There's a need and time for both. In my opinion.
Well, and I agree. I mock a lot of things. I just don't. There's a few things I just don't.
Oh yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, if I'm having a conversation with a theist, for example, or a debate, I'm not going to mock them. I'm going to try to make sure I get their name right. I'm going to be respectful, because what I'm interested in is is meaningful dialogue, and I agree. I don't think that chastising somebody will get you there. So it's just how it is. Different ways people use, different approaches they use.
Oh yeah.
I remember Christopher Hitchens saying that he's not above doing that.
Right.
So
I just want to take a moment and shout out to the new people who've showed up in our chat. Yeah. We've got Julie LaVoice and Doc Fearsome and Godless Granny, of course. Nerdy Rodent. I'm missing them. Where did that other?
I recognize most of those names.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. It's great that you've joined us. Thank you.
Quirky Q. It's a new one on me. I haven't seen Quirky Q. Quirky Q is having a bit of a problem with Nightbot. They're going at it. I think they've come to an accord though now. So that's good. No blood was shed. No Nightbots were harmed. So I just wanted to say hi to the new people and everybody. So thank you. Thank you all.
Do they have any questions they'd like us to cover?
That's a great question. Do you have any questions, especially for Randolf Richardson? He's a Canadian atheist. The Canadian atheist, I guess. I think it's kind of...
Yeah.
Obviously there's differences in population density, blah, 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 blah. But what other good... they didn't have a Canadian atheist, like AmericanAtheist.org? Is there not a movement up there?
Yeah, and I see atheism gradually becoming more mainstream here in Canada, especially as of late. It's really seems to be coming out a lot more. It could also be that because of the work I'm doing, more people are willing to talk with me about it. But I'm hearing this from other people too. It's coming out more, and it's more the younger generation that's particularly interested in it. But I'm also encountering people who are saying for quite a long time, they kind of lost faith in their religion, but didn't want to say anything because they didn't want to be ostracized by friends and family and whatnot. And so I suspect that that pressure cooker is probably boiling away, and at some point we're going to start seeing a trend change. Where is my prediction? We'll see a trend change where a lot more people are going to start leaving their churches and just say, I've had enough of this. I'm out. No more of that. I see publications like the Bite model, or publications about things like the Bite model, which look very very good to me. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, Damien.
No, I'm not.
Okay, that one is for determining if you're dealing with a cult, and it's 4 major sections. The B for behavior control. I forget what it is, but someone in the chat will probably remember what the acronym is. And so they cover a number of different characteristics. And so when you run them against, say, the Catholic Church or one of the local Muslim sects or something else, some other religion, you often find, or even that landmark form that's not a religion, it still comes up as a cult, because they don't. You can tick off at least a few of the boxes there.
Right. Well, that's the same thing. It sounds like kind of like there's a thing called sad persons, I think is what it's called. And it's for knowing or evaluating people for suicide.
Oh, okay.
It's an acronym. It stands for stuff.
Hey, Randolph, I just want to say real quick that Easism wants to say thank you for your post.
Oh.
I think that's who he's... Yeah, I think so. Pardon me. Sometimes it's hard to...
Which posting are they referring to?
He didn't clarify. He said Randy. Well, so I haven't seen KCA Randy in the chat yet, so I'm assuming he's calling you Randy. Anyway, I'm not really sure. Somebody tagged me. And then Atheist Pastor wants to know, and this is a little more direct. He wants to know what kind of growth Canadian Atheist has seen since you started it. And I think the reason why he's asking is because he's looking to start something similar in Australia, AustralianAtheist.org.
Well, I'll be happy to chat with him privately and give him lots of tips and suggestions. I actually want to talk with him too, because he's got a lot of experience apparently in running large events, and there's some stuff that I'm planning to do in the near future with Neil, the 604 Atheist.
Really awesome.
Who's almost as famous as Richard Carrier. He's been on your show.
I know, my show. He was on my show. I don't know if you guys know this, but he was on my show.
Great.
That's right. I really enjoyed that. So, yeah.
But I'd be happy to talk with Atheist Pastor about that. The growth we're seeing has been slow, but fairly steady. It's probably partly my fault because I don't do nearly enough marketing. And but we also don't have a big budget, so that's a limiting factor for us. So getting budgets for doing more marketing will definitely be helpful. He's certainly welcome to take a look at our website at www.canadianatheists.ca, and there's I also maintain a website called the Atheist Frontier, which is a .com, and if he does get stuff going, let me know, because I'll definitely include a listing for what he's doing in there. I think that's exciting, starting a new group, and if he can start a national atheism group for Australia, that'll be really, really great. I think there is one there. I don't know how active they are.
Right. Well, one of the things that he's got going for him is his YouTube channel. He's building a YouTube channel. He's developing relationships with godless bitches. Is that right? Is it godless bitches? Anyway, no, that's GB3. Anyway, he's developing relationships with other channels like mine, Math Pigs. It's actually Mama Atheist and Jen's Little Corner. They come up with one. Critical bitches. Critical. Forgive me for forgetting that, ladies. He's working with these other groups and developing his own online presence. So whenever he does that, I think he's going to have some success.
Great.
You know.
Yeah, he's good, and I do have him included in the broadcasting resources section of the Atheist Frontier. He's listed here, Atheist Pastor, Beyond Imaginary Friends. I like that slogan. It's good. It's clever.
You know, if it was, I was running StreamYards, as you guys know. You're actually in StreamYards over there on the stream. But, there was a time where I just pop Atheist Pastor in, hey brother, come on in. And I'll be able to do that shortly. It's just right now I've only got it set up for 3 in this one here. I'll have a 4-person set up, and then I'll throw him a link in the future. You know how I like to drop in these other people.
Yeah.
And then, of course, then, you know, same thing with you, Randolph. In the future, I get these fellow atheists on there, and in the future, you're welcome to come back and be a guest host. And we'll,
I'd be delighted.
When we grill somebody else.
You mentioned that before. Yeah, I'd love to do that. That'd be great. Yeah. Damien's taking care of the business right now, though.
Yeah, Damien's doing great. You guys are more serious. I'm trying to keep up, and then every now and then I say something just kind of non sequitur or whatever the hell's going on in my head. I'm like, you said something about trucks? I like blue trucks. I don't know
I've got a blue shirt.
Yeah, I'm trying.
But all of it's needed. I mean, that's what I have a friend of mine who's a philosopher, and me and him went out and did street activism, and he's like, man, you can talk to everybody. And I said, yeah, it doesn't seem like you can talk to almost anyone. Because if they wouldn't do like a full-on, educational, scholarly philosophy debate with him, it's a waste of his time. And to me, I think that we're missing out on people because everybody is not like that.
Right.
I've been thinking a couple of weeks ago, I came up with an idea. I've been meaning to approach Neil with this, but he and I could stand around on street corners with one of those carousels on wheels that have you can put all kinds of booklets in, and we'll put all kinds of empty pages in there, and we'll have something about atheism, and we'll let people approach us just like the Watchtower people do,
Yeah.
Hey, that's not a bad. I actually have some of those people down the road. I've never gone and spoken to them, but there's a.
Oh, dude, it's fun. Record it.
Yeah.
Dude, they won't even talk to me. They won't even talk. I walk up and they're like, "Oh no."
I did that when I was waiting for the bus on the way to school when I was a kid. Sometimes the bus was taking a while, so I'd chat with them. And as soon as we started talking about God, that's when, I got to go.
I'm out.
So they like to chat because they're bored. And so maybe they're new, I guess. So I'm not sure. Those two ladies anyway. But,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've been doing that American Atheist thing. Here's the non sequitur again.
That's okay.
I've been doing the American Atheist thing.
They're a big organization. They've been wildly successful.
They're doing it. And then I just spoke with here's the deal with the Freedom from Religion Foundation here in Albuquerque, where I be. A few years ago, I tried to get in with them, but things didn't happen. Just didn't work right. And then I contacted them this week, and apparently all the people in here in Albuquerque who were on the board or ran the show retired. So there is no FFRF in Albuquerque anymore.
Oh,
so,
that sucks.
Yeah, that's a clarion call. I like using that word. That's good. For something to do. Right. I could get involved with them and try to kickstart their thing here.
Well, if they're interested in starting something in Canada, at least in Western Canada, I'd be happy to work with them on that as well.
That's great.
I wanted to address your thing about a non sequitur. It's not really a non sequitur. A non sequitur has to be that you're offering it in place of a valid argument or valid evidence. So if I ask you, Chris, why do you have this morning show, and we're having a debate, and you're supposed to give me a moral reason or some kind of, and you're like, well, I saw this funny cow, that then it's definitely a non sequitur. But just if it's your show, and it's not really, just saying, it's not really a non sequitur to me.
But I'm going to interject here. He was using a colloquial non sequitur.
But he gets what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying, right? I mean, you guys are talking about X, and I'm going to bush out of nowhere go, hey, look at this pretty rabbit over here. Squirrel!
Right. Right.
Anyway, back to monitoring the chat for me. I'll be quiet.
No, you're a great asset, really.
Did he call me an ass?
An asset.
Oh.
This is starting to sound like a James Bond episode all of a sudden.
Ruh-roh, yes. Let me just check the chat to see if anybody asked anything.
Hey, I'm okay with the troll questions too, if there's any. It's fine. I'm an advocate for free expression, so as Matt Dillahunty said, I'm not afraid of anything when he was talking with Jordan Peterson.
Okay, well, I haven't had any troll questions yet. Well, I mean, I don't think so. No, most of our guys have been fairly...
Is Doorknob Head there? You'll have a troll question.
He's not here yet. I mean, you'll know him. You'll smell it. Yeah, he's not here yet. I'm surprised. He's usually hanging out in here. And I haven't seen Dave. I think Dave's off on another stream. Dave's not here.
So do you ever hear people, for the Canadian atheists, do you ever hear them say that it's not needed because the country is not that hardcore religious? Because I hear some people come up with that nonsense. It's like, well, if sexism isn't that bad, we should, just let it go. It's like, no, wrong.
We get that. And my approach here is because I see it becoming, we're not having having the kind of controversial issues like we see in the U.S. It's not coming through so strongly. We're pretty laid back here in Canada overall, comparatively, but and we also have more than two political parties, and I think that's part of the reason things aren't so polarized here. But I feel like if I was to wait 5 or 10 years before starting to respond, that'd be more reactive, and that would be a more difficult task to work on, more challenging for sure. So if we start now, before it becomes a major problem, we kind of nip it in the bud earlier on, we can be more influential, I hope, and be more effective. And then when it comes to some major thing, well, we've already got this background that we can draw from, that hopefully that we can use to be already well established and better known by the media, so we can get right in there more easily. That's my hope, is it'll just make in the long term make everything a lot easier.
Yeah, one in a sense argument I have against that kind of a mentality, that you're in a safe place so you don't need atheism, is the exact reason. It's just turn that around. You're in a safe place. We need your voice because there's many places that's not safe. You know what I'm saying? It's wrong mentality to think that, well, let's say that Canadian's the safest place. I'm not saying it is, but I'm just saying we still need atheists there speaking out, because we have a world to care about, not just one little country. You're speaking out, gives voice to people that don't have a voice.
Well, it's not safe, though, because there are plenty of people who think it's not normal to not believe in deities. So to me, that's a problem, because they have the wrong idea about people. And there are people who will not get jobs because they don't follow a religion of their employer. It won't be said, because that's illegal here in Canada under our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is one of the more important parts of our Canadian Constitution. But so it's part of the fundamental laws. But they say we can't discriminate based on all sorts of different factors. And then some examples are listed there in our charter, such as discrimination against based on sex, based on religious affiliation, based on sexual orientation, and different things. I don't think it says orientation, but these are only examples. The spirit of the message would still include that. And this is something that I find gets misunderstood a lot, is people think that that list of examples is actually the only things that we can't discriminate based on. But no, it's, race is listed in there, and, whatever the full concept of race is these days seems to change. But I think most people know what that means. And so it's just... We have it in our laws. You cannot discriminate based on these things. And so sometimes the question comes up, oh, you exclusive group, you only catering to atheists. No. If you're, when you fill out the application form to join Canadian Atheists, you aren't asked if you're an atheist or not. It's anybody can join. So, it's just like if you go into a church or a mosque or something, or a synagogue or a temple, and you're not part of that religion, they still welcome you. They're hoping that you'll convert, so it's like... Right.
Well, I wasn't saying that I agree that there's nowhere in Canada that's dangerous to be an atheist. I was making a comment, even if we, for our psychological...
we're safer than Saudi Arabia. I guess comparatively, you were talking.
Well, right. Yeah. Well, what I was also saying I like to do is when people offer something, I buy what they're selling, and then I show why it doesn't matter. In other words, even if I agree that there's no threat at all in Canada, and I don't agree with that, but I'm saying it still is needed because of places with threat. That's all I'm saying is I'm nullifying their argument. Even if they're right, I'm not even going to argue. Even if you're 100% right, there's no threat in Canada, we still need those atheists, because they can then speak out freely for places that can't. So I was just saying it's to me an invalid argument.
That's right. Yeah. That's an important factor for sure. So, yeah. So somebody's just leaving here. So, bye. Have a good day. So,
bye.
It's my wife. So, she's just going out early today. So,
I have a question for you from the chat.
Oh, great.
Okay. I don't always understand the questions, but I try to always ask them. Ease wants to know if you've ever been to Oak Island, and if so, what is your opinion about Oak Island?
Oak Island. Where is Oak Island?
It's on the other side of the
In Nova
country.
Scotia?
It's in Canada, though.
Oh, it's in Nova Scotia?
It's
I
in
haven't
Nova
been to Nova Scotia, so no, I haven't been to Oak Island.
Okay.
What is significant about Oak Island?
I think there's unless I'm mistaken, there's a buried
I watch it all
treasure
the time.
down a well. Yeah.
Well,
Say that again?
it's not a well. There's people that in 1700s found a depression in the ground and a rope hanging over it, and they figured maybe pirates had buried treasure. So there's these three kids, and they start digging it up, and I don't know, I think they got down 30 feet or something, and every 10 feet they'd find oak, planks, like laid out. And so then they told someone else, and they brought like a crew in, and they went down like, I think it was like 90 feet. And all of a sudden it flooded with water from like a flood tunnel. And every 10 feet there was this row of logs. So, and it's been for a long time, people have been going and trying to find, stuff there. And they found a lot of tunnels and a lot of wood.
I think the idea is kind of a romantic one for literature, but the idea of pirates going to all that trouble to dig a well and to store their treasure or to bury it underground like that doesn't really make a lot of sense. In those days, why would you want to leave your valuables behind where someone else could dig them up and take them,
I think
and
there's
if
a
you're
lot
going
of
to vacate
presumption.
a place, you're going to take all your valuables with you, wouldn't you? It
You-
just doesn't seem to me like you'll find the empty holes, and that's about it. And that seems to be what everybody only ever finds anyway.
Well, like Damien said, somebody, I think it was like early 1700s or 17,
Yeah.
somewhere along there. They come along the place and they found the rope and a thing and wood. There's no real. I mean, we don't. I think part of the mystery is why would somebody do that pre 1700?
Correct.
Who would be able to do
It's
that?
probably, yeah, and they found wharfs and stuff way out under the water, 8 feet under the dirt, that are like 1730, that they built wharfs to put stuff there or unload or something. But I mean, they haven't found it. They just found like the remnants that they were doing stuff there.
Right. Atheism suggests it may have been the French, but I haven't kept up with it. It's been so long. That'd be a good notion, though. They were out and about, or the Portuguese. They were out
Yeah,
and about.
I would say that if someone did build it, what they buried, I don't know, but it would seem like the construction is a lot more military than pirates. I can't see pirates digging a hole 100 feet deep and then all kinds of water traps and stuff. It just pirates.
No, I agree. Yeah, and
No.
they're most likely more interested in finding a local bar to drink in and to go do more work. They just got off a ship. It's hard work in those days. It's not like.
But military, I could see it more possible because the military can tell people to do all kinds of asinine things.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, and they'll have a reason for having something there. So.
Yeah, I mean they could be military ordnance. I mean, for all they know, they could dig down and it's the ton of cannons.
Well, what about you guys? You've always been atheists, or you have some backgrounds, or?
No, I was a theist until I was 35 in college, trying to be a mental health counselor, and they made me take 2 classes on religion because of I'm going to be a counselor. I have to be able to deal with other people of other faith, and that actually ended up made me lose my faith.
Wow, because you're seeing a lot of similarities.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What
Similarities.
different deities in them.
Yeah,
How about you, Chris?
and then
Sorry.
they had a class on the Bible itself, and halfway through the class, I stopped being an atheist. I was a Christian, and I done.
I was raised a poorly indoctrinated Christian. Didn't quite take, and then I eventually I had a friend who was a Christian, and he became a pseudo atheist, and I turned him back into a Christian. Then I went away and became an atheist, and I came back, and he was full blown Christian, holding sign down on the central. Talk to me about Jesus kind of Christian, and that prompted me into being the activist atheist I am today.
Good.
what set me on my course.
How's your friend doing today? Is he still?
He's still a Christian. Yeah, still going. He's not like that. He doesn't go. He's and he may get back into that someday. But he's still there.
Have you ever talked with him about it? Did he feel betrayed by you or something?
Oh no. When I came back to Albuquerque to hang out with him, he couldn't hang out with me because he's down there doing the thing. So I'd go down there on Central at 10 or 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday night and debate with him and his friends. And that was my begin. Those are my open first debates with Christians. Was actually unintentional. I thought I was going down there to talk him back to the light, and he's like, "Here, meet my friend, and this guy here, and this guy here." And I ended up going, "Well, the reason why we don't want in God we trust in schools is because of this, and the reason, and so that was it for me, and kind of got me into it. And then here we are today. He's still a Christian, sort of like, who is the earliest writer who is not a Christian who spoke about Jesus? That'd be Tacitus and Josephus, depending on your thing, right? Depending on your history. But those two guys weren't converted. They met these first century Christians, heard their stories, and were not convinced.
Yeah.
So, just being close to the source or the notion, just because I'm this big time atheist person doesn't mean I don't, my best friend is still a Christian. It doesn't, it didn't rub off, My wife is still a deist of a fashion.
Is she the kind of deist who believes the deity is still around and ignoring us, or has died off?
We don't talk about it a lot. Originally, when we first got together and got married, she was a Christian, but over the years, she's kind of moved away from thinking about the Christianity and believing that specific. But she really, deism there. Yeah, she still has a hard time she still believes there's something bigger than us. She just doesn't know what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a religion called somethingism.
There you go. It's
not much of a religion. It's just basically the conception psychologically that there has to be something out there.
I can tell you, there's something called Yoism as well, which is similar, and it's all kinds of different crazy religions out there. But
it's actually, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like Iskalism or something. It's something from Iceland.
Oh, okay.
But it's an official religion. But it basically means, in English, it means somethingism, which I think is a really great name because that would be a whole bunch of people actually part of that.
So, Chris, you're talking about something bigger than all of us, and I can tell you there is. It's called our universe and even our cosmos.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Well, I've often argued, something similar to that. The cosmos, the universe, that's fine. I totally dig it. Let's pretend, but if my body was God and we are individual bacteria within my belly, God doesn't know anything about it. Doesn't care what bacteria has screwed over what other bacteria, has no clue. Doesn't care what these bacteria do with their genitals. So the universe could be God, but even if the universe is God, it doesn't care what I do. It's not a personal God who follows me around and turns its eye whenever I'm apparently molesting an altar boy, but is all about it whenever I'm doing other things. You know what I mean? I don't have that kind of God is ridiculous. The notion of something of the universe, and we are the universe trying to understand itself. We are the universe manifest in intelligence. That totally makes sense to me. We are gods. I am God. I couldn't help myself. All right, guys. Well, we have done the hour. Thank you very much, Damien, for showing up, and thank you, Randolph, for being a part of this. I appreciate you guys, your patience with me as I work with this new software.
Everything went really smoothly. I think everything's fine.
Everything, so, yeah. Thank you.
You're limited to 1 hour, huh? This was a very nice conversation. I really enjoyed meeting you, Damien, and it's good to see you again, Chris.
If you want, you can come on, and I can do an interview with you too if you want.
If you guys want to go on, I was trying to be courteous to you, to be honest, Randolph, by holding it at an hour. If you guys want to continue talking, I would let you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I've got lots of time. The kids don't have school today; they're sleeping in. Everything's fine. So I don't have a time constraint here.
Do you have time, Damien, to continue visiting?
Yeah, sure.
All right, good deal. Well, then, there we go. Carry on.
Your first episode with OBS is going to be an extended time.
An extended version. That's right. Well, I'm going to go back to working on the chat.
Party.
Somebody doesn't believe in me. I think the universe doesn't believe in me. What is it? Don't believe in you. I missed it.
Are they asking a question?
I took my glasses.
You know what? I know what answer. I know what answer you can give to them right now.
Okay.
42.
See,
Just
that's
put 42.
yes, 42 is
That's it.
it.
That answers everything.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I've heard people say that the universe doesn't care about you, but the truth is that the universe doesn't have a mind to care or not care, so it's indifferent in a sense because it has nothing.
I said I was a god, and I said I was a god, and she said she doesn't believe in me. But I'm right here. You can see me.
Yeah, but that would have to say, what do you mean by God? If you mean some supernatural agent, then I don't believe. But if you just mean a label of authority that you have over your own life, okay.
Chris, you might have to update your screen name to Chris Mallard, the Daily Deity Atheist. Now.
Yeah, well, I was going to put the amazing Super Chris on there, but I didn't.
There you go.
I restrained myself. So.
Oh, you do share Christopher
supernatural
Hitchens' first name. You do share Christopher Hitchens' first name, so you've got that going for you.
I do. I remember he was quite particular. I guess there was two Chris Hitchens, Christopher Hitchens. There was some Chris Hitchens who wrote for a journal or something, and was not of the same mentality, and they were getting confused. So that's why Christopher Hitchens insisted on being called Christopher Hitchens.
Well, Christopher is my middle name, it turns out. So
is it really?
I feel some kinship to him that way as well.
See, there you go.
An indirect kinship, though.
See, that's where I came up with the whole the amazing Super Chris, is because there are many Chris's out there, but I am the amazing Super Chris, and so
with some special effects, you could light up your tattoos and unleash your superpowers on everyone.
There you go. I like it. Coming soon. Well, I do.
The action figure.
The action figure. Yes, complete with adult diaper.
Oh boy. I don't want to know where that's going.
Yeah. Of course, that's for the over 21 crowd.
Yes. Well, more like over 61 crowd. So.
You be careful, guys. I'm in denial about my aging. It's not working out so well, but I'm still denying it.
Oh yeah. Me too. I'm fighting it as much as I can. Well, I say that. I kind of embrace my gray, and my hair's thinning a little bit, but I'm going to be a sexy old man. I've been saying that for a long time. And
just ask your wife if you're sexy, and that's probably all the validation you need. I'm sure she'll say yes.
I pay her extra to lie.
Well, I do think that denial is probably one of our most common addictions.
There you go. And that and sugar.
Because it works.
Hey, Damien. Julie LaVoice in the chat pointed out that my tattoos are amazing. So do you want to show yours too? Damien also has. He's got the
you
more.
Guys have matching cufflinks there. That's great.
Sort of. Well, mine's different. Mine's a different atheist tattoo than the standard. Right. But he's got the very cool A. Is that with words go around it, or is it just
it's links.
Oh,
it's supposed to be like Aztec inspired.
Oh, I see.
All my tattoos. So
that looks neat. That is awesome. Yeah.
Well, I ever so diligently
did my Phoenix tattoo on my shoulder. I got that for my wife for her birthday. I have color as well. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
But
I'm wearing a dress shirt. I can't pull it off easily. I'll show you in a future episode.
Brown chicken, brown cow. All right, let me show you mine here. I got this.
Got my wife's Chinese name on it too. So hey,
right
look
on.
at that. We've all got shoulder tattoos.
Got my arm, my Thor's hammer there goes down.
Right on.
And then over here, I got the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh.
I've got.
I guess
he's going all out. Look at that.
There you go. Oh yeah. He's fully covered.
This was done freehand by the tattoo artist.
Oh really?
He had people lined up for years in advance, and then he couldn't finish it because he got kicked out of the country based on false accusations. Turned out he was here on a visa, and so I'm trying to find someone to finish the job. And I guess, as you know, that's not an easy thing to do in the tattoo industry. So it's probably going to be a while, unfortunately. I was hoping otherwise, but I'd like to find him again because doing almost all of it just freehand is quite a skill. I lucked in to get this guy too, because one of his clients couldn't make it, and so and they paid their down payment, which was non-refundable. So I ended up getting it for a good price too. So.
Bench wants to point out that God doesn't like tattoos. We're all going to burn in hell. Just.
I don't care.
Well, it makes the tattoo burn in deeper. Actually, with this one,
haven't we all blasphemed the Holy Spirit?
I mean,
so we're not even redeemable. I mean, that's what it says.
Kristen says, "Atheist assemble." So you can.
Chris, just a little, so you know, this is the first time I've ever showed my tattoo on the internet.
Oh, hey, well, thank you very much. With this one over here, I actually had to have two artists do it as well. The first one just did the outline. $500 he charged me for the outline. Then I went back and I thought he was going to finish it, but he did the outline again, and I was kind of mad that it cost me. So he did me really hard, so you can still feel. This is like 8 years later, and it's scarified. So if you're sitting here, you can run across the. And I had some other lady finish the hammer, do the color on the peak, fill in all the stuff down here. $300. She completely finished up the rest of the tattoo. Did a beautiful job.
But the first fantastic
guy who did it was just.
It looks like new.
Yeah, they did a great job. I keep it baby fresh and out of the sun. I have delicate skin.
Yeah,
I'm delicate.
That's why it hurt.
I tell you what hurt though. Up here, this red up here at the peak, that hurt like hell. I was like, what the heck? And then the pit meat, when they started getting into the pit meat down here, I cried like a baby, like a hungry, angry baby.
To me, that part almost tickled.
So to me, it's just.
I have my neck. That was the worst.
Was it?
So to me, it just feels like a bunch of cat scratches and then sunburn for a few days. It's not a big deal.
I'm one of those. I go to sleep on my left side every night. That's kind of just how I roll. And
I'm like that too.
Yeah. So when I got this tattoo over here, it was a really rough week or two. Yeah. Kristen says hers are scars too. Actually, now, I mean, at the time, obviously, I regret it. It hurt, but I really enjoy it. To touch the tattoo and feel the scarification, to feel the raised the edges. You know, me and the wife will be laying together or something, and she'll rub her hands across it. She digs it too. I dig it. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of cool.
Good.
That's great. That's fantastic.
You can actually get scarification all by itself.
I've heard. I asked the tattoo about that. I think so too. Yeah.
I don't want it, but
they've certainly been doing it for a while. Of course, the whole tattoo thing. When I was a kid, tattoos were really for the bar people and the biker people, and because of things said, I guess, thusly in the Bible. But a lot of people don't realize how old tattoos are. They're almost as old as people.
And more than likely, they were actually religious, and they probably also could have been medical or believed to be medical, because even the Iceman, who was, I think, 50-something, 5,000-something years old, almost 6,000 years old. I think it's 53, maybe. I can't remember exactly. But he has a bunch of tattoos that are along lines, like dots along lines of where you'd be like injured or whatever. So tattoos are old.
I'd imagine of course, we see them throughout modern cultures. The Maori, and then the scarification you can see across some of them in sub-Saharan Africa, where they scarify their entire body. I mean, it's those things are just. And then the first time I hate to say this, I knew I'd seen it before. I just didn't know what it was. The first time I'd ever seen and knew what the tattoos on the face was in that movie Ender's Game. The hero, I guess, I don't remember, Ben Kingsley. His character has his face painted, and he said he's a Maori or something. Of course, he doesn't look Maori at all. But that kind of got me into it. And then, of course, like you said, the what's the man, the Iceman?
Yeah, if they were found in the Alps or whatever.
Yeah. Even those people going way back having tattoos. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think if I remember right, it's either that or Egypt or China that has the oldest tattoo. But I think it might be that one.
Hey, Randolph, since I got you, I mean, may as well ask the hard questions. Down here, we've been having some issues with the Project Blitz going in America, trying to force all these crazy religious nutback laws and stuff. In God we trust on school buildings and the denial of care stuff. Are you having similar problems in Canada? Right wing?
Not really. The biggest, we do have a little bit. We've had over the last 5 to 10 years. Just as I was at the cusp of starting Canadian Atheists, and I can't remember clearly offhand if it was just before or after. I think it was after I started, but maybe not necessarily. It might have been before we incorporated, but I was. There was a private member's bill put through our government to remove from the laws, to redact the anti-blasphemy legislation, which people wrongly call blasphemy legislation. No, to me, blasphemy legislation would be pro-blasphemy, like freedom of expression. So using the term anti-blasphemy legislation is a very important thing to encourage, I think, so that we have clarity in our conversations. They have, these laws ended up getting redacted. So at first, British Columbia, the province I'm in, was 3rd place. I think Quebec was 2nd place, and Ontario was definitely 1st place. And so I was rallying, getting lots of people to join the petition, and I got us to move up to 2nd place as the most number of people signing this petition. And so then it finally got passed and got assent and all this stuff, and that law's off the books. You can no longer be sued for committing blasphemous libel, it was called. And so that was a nice victory. So we've seen improvement there. The more recent controversy that stands out to me is, and there's different things going on, but there's Trinity Western University. They're a law university, so they're teaching law. And under our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, it states that everybody has equal access to the law and is equal under the law. And this is part of the principles of fundamental justice. Right. So, but what's been happening is Trinity Western University had some kind of religious covenant people had to sign that would have all sorts of bizarre requirements that would be in conflict with our anti-discrimination section of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So I wasn't the one who started this, but I did encourage a number of lawyers to, because I do work with lawyers on a regular basis, a lot of different ones. I did talk with them about it and encourage them to raise this with the Law Society. And the Law Society, I even talked to the staff there as well, and said, look, this needs to be taken care of. If people are to be, if we're to take this seriously, to have equal access under the law, then that covenant cannot interfere with a person enrolling in the law school to become a lawyer, because even to become educated in the law and become a lawyer is part of the legal system. And a lot of people think of it as a separate thing, but no, this is specifically a part of it, as well as having access to courts and due process and all this other kind of stuff, and having our freedoms protected. So they ended up appealing the cases again and again, and all the way up to the Supreme Court of Canada, who decided with our charter. And so they have taken the covenant out, as I understand, because they had to, and I'm glad this decision was made this way. They removed the covenant for people in the law program, but as I understand it, it's still in place for other parts of their program, and so that still violates, in my view, the anti-discrimination portion of our charter. When you're a chartered school, educational institution, the law applies to you just like it does everybody else, even when you're not any kind of business. You can't be doing this kind of thing. You can't make it a requirement for enrollment. That's just not acceptable. And the schools here, the universities, do get some funding from government money. So this is an important thing. There's a fellow who's one of our key people at the Canadian Atheists. His name's Darwin. He is currently looking into getting tax exemptions removed from religious institutions. So because they don't have to pay property taxes here. And the only reason is that they don't believe in deities. And he's started an organization called voterswithoutreligion.org. So that one's, it's all focused with a Canadian focus, of course, but he's doing pretty well with that. He's getting a lot of interest in that. We're also promoting things like blood donation and things like that that are helpful to society. So in that kind of thing, again, there's no requirement for you to be an atheist or a religious person. Anybody can donate blood, which is wonderful. And Neil's a big donor. He gets a lot of people involved in that, and so he's made tremendous progress on there. He does it to honor his father, who's a record holder. And when you have him on the program, you'll have to ask him about blood donation. So,
yeah.
Right on. So, do you also do help the homeless and stuff like that?
We're not big enough to do that. We don't have the funding. We'd like to get into stuff like that down the road, but there are some other groups that are doing that sort of thing already. And I also think that it's important to possibly not compete with organizations that are doing that kind of thing well, and instead set up alliances with them and help them do. And then they can help us in turn do better. We can all kind of work together this way. I'm a big fan of setting up affiliations with other organizations in this way, because I think an organization that's been doing something like that for a long time is probably going to be able to do it a lot more effectively and a lot more efficiently than a new player usually. And setting up an alliance can also be helpful for directing them. Some of our members might end up joining them, and some of their members might join us, so the affiliations can work out quite well. I don't see much sense in competing. I think it's a wasted effort when you can just make an affiliation and send people in the right direction, So yeah. So
I agree. Also, I'd read something that when that declaration for in Canada for non-discrimination, that a bunch of religious people were saying that law would make the Bible, unteachable in the fact, because there's parts in it that could be considered open discrimination. Well, I know it didn't happen, but I know that there was some issues. I wondered if you knew about that.
I don't know about that particular case, but I've heard that claim. I've also heard the opposite claim, like diametric opposite I'm talking about, where religious people will sometimes they'll credit their religion for us having human rights and things like that. No, the reason we have human rights and we slavery is because we've disagreed with these religious tenets and directives and edicts that say we should do bad things. And I see that as progress, and it's a very important part of progress in humanity, and it gives me a lot of hope for where the future is going with these things.
Wonderful. So your organization promotes humanism. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say that directly. There's an organization here in BC where our headquarters is based called the BC Humanists, who do that extremely well. So when people are looking for humanism, I direct them to take a look at them, because they're very active and they're very effective at what they do. We are very much interested in promoting our rights and freedoms that are under our charter, and we're also promoting this idea of normalizing atheism. So we, as an artifact of that, we are promoting atheism as the most fundamental definition that it is, that all the variant definitions share a characteristic of, which is the absence of belief in deities. Now, a lot of people will use the word lack. I prefer to use the word absence, because it doesn't carry the implicit baggage that lack seems to carry, where lack sort of implies that there's some abnormalcy to it because something normal is missing, where absence seems to completely be neutral on that. So I'm looking, and I use the word deities because I think the word God is sexist. When it's used talking about God as all powerful. Well, many married men can attest to the fact that the goddess they've married is usually the one who's all powerful and all knowing. True. You guys are shaking your heads.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I have a wise wife.
Think about it. I notice.
My wife is much smarter than I am. Way smarter than I am. She's got
You sound just like me, man.
Yeah, she's got more letters behind. She's got a long name. Her name is. She's got more letters behind her name than in her name. So
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. She's wildly coyote smart.
You know, it says a lot about the who you've picked as a spouse. Says a lot about you as well. I've heard that adage. I'm not sure I'm saying it very eloquently, but
real quick, Kristen wants to point out that she can't donate blood, and it really bothers her just thinking about it. But she wanted to shout out to those. Much respect to you guys who do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I understand. I know Kristen. She's explained to me why, and you know there are people who can't for certain reasons, and the reasons vary. And I don't think there's really an invalid reason for it. You know, it's up to a person to make a choice about their own bodily autonomy, and we have freedom of bodily autonomy because we have the security of the person is a human right. It's very important. So that means that if you don't want to donate blood, you don't donate blood, and you don't have to explain to anybody why. Right. Same with having an abortion. You don't have to explain why. You don't have to justify it. Same with all sorts of, you're getting a tattoo. You don't have to explain why. It's all these different kinds of things people want to do. It's their body, their life, and in order to have security of the person means that you get to make decisions ultimately about what happens to your body. So and that's very important. Now, just as a note, there are some people who say they would like to donate blood, but they can't because their blood is in some way tainted or not acceptable. Well, Canadian Blood Services, at least I know for a fact, is accepting tainted blood now because they'll use it for research purposes instead of putting in people. So this is fantastic because they're not taking from the pun not intended here, the pool of blood or the pools of blood because there's different types that is not tainted. So they can actually draw from this tainted blood that people donate. And then that's helpful too, because then that means non-tainted blood, more of it is available to help more people, which is very exciting because it can help a lot more people and make society better in the long run through this because people do get hurt and they need this. So if you're not in Canada, like if you're in Canada, you just call Canadian Blood Services and or Quebec, they have a different organization, but I think they're doing the same thing. And you let them know your blood's tainted. They're going to test anyway, but they'll be able to hook you up and get you going. And in other countries, it would be worth a call to those blood services organizations if you want to donate and just find out if they can take tainted blood if you have it, because they may use it for research purposes as well. I suspect it's not unique to Canada. This policy.
Really? I've never heard of that. That's wonderful. I think it's a wonderful move.
Yeah, no, I do too. I think it's great because any way people can help other people to me is the direction we always need to go with these things.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I had a question for you here from the chat. Let me see if I can find it. I lost it. Atheism asked it. And the chat's just been rolling along. I'll find another one for you real quick. Temple of Yoism wants to ask Randy if how the FFRF help in Canada. Do they help as well, or do you have any connection?
I'm not aware of their presence here, but I would certainly be. And by the way, I'll say to them, "Yo,
yo."
It would be great if the Freedom from Religion Foundation was operating here. I think they're very focused on the U.S. I could be wrong because I don't follow them closely as far as any Canadian activities go. But I'd certainly love to see them involved here because right now at this point it would be an easy job for them. But if they were to get in later, then things could change a bit where they'd end up having a bigger and more expensive task going forward. And I'd be happy to assist with heading up a branch here in BC if the FFRF is seriously interested. I'm just putting that out there.
You know, I don't know if they're an international organization or if they're just for the U.S. I'm not familiar enough with them to ask.
As I recall, they're just in the U.S. because and that would make sense to me because the laws differ from country to country.
Hey, Damien, the next
question. The U.S. has their style of legal system, and we have ours, and whatnot. Yes. Like we don't, for example, a difference that comes to mind right away. We don't have capital punishment here in Canada. It's just not allowed. But I know that
which is
some
good.
states have it. Pardon?
I said which is good, or I agree with.
Yeah.
Not having capital punishment.
No, I think I consider capital punishment to be a form of murder, actually. And I know a lot of Texans would probably disagree with me on that in particular. And other
we have
people,
a fast lane in Texas. It's like an express aisle.
Yeah, I know.
And what's funny is it's supposedly it's supposed to to make it so there's less crime, it doesn't. Texas is proof of that. That argument is really not valid. I mean, there's lots of death penalty and streamlined, and yet not any lack of death or murder or torture.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned Fastlane, I'll get back to that in a moment. You mentioned Fastlane. When Aaron Ra was here visiting the BC Humanists, I'm a member, by the way, as well. I keep my membership up with them because I like what they're doing. They have. I gave Aaron and his wife a ride back to the hotel after the event was over, and he was so shocked that there are people parked in the outermost lane on main streets, on the street that we took. It's after 7 p.m. they're allowed to park until about 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. or something like that. And he said that's not allowed in Texas at all, any time around the clock. And he's like, these people shouldn't be parking here. It was a bit of a culture shock for him. It was really neat. Had a nice chat with him, though. But as far as the capital punishment stuff goes, yeah, I think one thing that saddens me about what goes on in the U.S. is that many of the prisons are privatized. They're run by private corporations, and I think that's so wrong because to me, a prison system should be run by the government, and it should be focused on rehabilitation rather than punishment. And we take a look at I think, is it Poland or one of those kind of countries in that area that has they did an experiment in recent years. They're going full rehabilitation with some criminals for many years, and their jail cells don't look like jail cells at all. They look like a university kid's dorm. It's got a desk, they've got books, they've got a bed, they've got carpeted floors, they've got a window they can look outside and see the forest. And what they're finding is the recidivism rate is extremely low with people who go through that. So it sounds to me like rehabilitation works. And people are finished once they've done their term in prison. They come out. They need to be rehabilitated so they can do better in society afterwards, and they can be a more meaningful part of life going forward. And I think if we do this, if every country was doing this, we would have better quality life for everybody. You'd have a lot less problems. You'd have people going into prison not being worried so much about having to fight and survive, but more they know that what's going to happen is that people are going to be there to help them. And the most important fundamental message that can send to people when they go to prison is, hey, you're valued. Because a lot of people, as you probably know, going to prison are feeling like society's had enough of them and they're being ignored. And that's kind of one of the worst things you can do is isolate a person and make them feel like outcasts. And if you can say, hey, look, we actually think you matter. This is why we're going to go for rehabilitation, because we want to see you come back to society later as a better person who can function and be a meaningful part of what everybody else is doing. What kind of message would that send to people? I think it would probably help. I know some people can't be rehabilitated, but I think for the majority, this could probably work very well and overall get us a much better result. If you disagree, please say something.
Well, we need to get rid of our private prison system here. We need to get rid of that. The notion of making money off of people's incarceration is just, I cannot believe. Well, capitalism. Capitalism.
Here in Canada, and what surprises people here in Canada, prisoners also have rights. They have the right to freedom of expression.
That's crazy.
Many of the rights. They have certain restrictions that are imposed because they're in prison, but they still have certain rights. And I get the impression that and from what I've heard from people who've been in the U.S. Private prison system over the years, is that they lose all their rights. Once you're in prison, you don't have the right to vote. You don't have the right for anything. You're lucky if they'll let you write out a letter and stuff. I know firsthand.
They're arguing on those. That's something they're going back and forth about, whether or not prisoners should be allowed to vote or not, and
that
when they should be allowed to vote.
That shouldn't even be a discussion. Those people that are arguing against it don't understand what freedom is supposed to be. Right. And you've got America, who advertises itself as the perfect example of a free country. They're supposed to have freedom associated with them, and then you're arguing against this kind of thing. There's something amiss there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think personally, to me, our whole prison system should be changed to a mental health system. Most of the time, you can have people that are going to these prisons that have some sort of a mental problem or issue going on, even if it's PTSD from their life or their environment. It's something that, in a sense, to me, counseling is needed. And I think that our whole system is about punishment and suffering, and really it should be about rehabilitation, like you were saying. But rehabilitation that doesn't involve the person's mind, you haven't really helped the person. You know, you can change behaviors, but if you haven't, got the cognitive with the behavior, that's why like now they have cognitive behavioral theory. You need to do both. I mean, you can't just do one and expect that, glorification to happen.
Well, when the attitude is more rehabilitative rather than vengeful, already the whole mindset it changes the whole nature of how these things are being handled, and that's a very important fundamental thing to do. They have to separate, they have to segregate child molesters from the general population, and what I found out, the reason for that is that many of the people in prison were molested themselves when they were children. And when they see this, because they're in an environment that is vengeance-based, they come across these people. What are they going to do? What the environment promotes, more vengeance. There's a famous, or maybe not famous, but there's a pretty extreme case of before the segregation, as I understand, where a child molester was in the general population, and a couple of prisoners held him down, and he got raped. They counted over 144 times or something like that, and he died from it. So they're going to. So they decide they're going to better have to segregate after this. I don't know which prison this happened in, but as I understand, it was somewhere in the States. We have the same problem here in Canada. We have to segregate the child molesters because otherwise the other general population is going to go crazy and kill them. And it's understandable why they want to do that. It's just unfortunate that this kind of environment has to be, and I don't mean has to be as a necessity, but just has to be as a matter of consequence because of the way the situation is all set up. But I agree with you. The mental health approach is definitely the more rehabilitative kind of approach and makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that, like you said, some people can't be rehabilitated, nor should they be let free. But I still think that doesn't mean we should be torturing them or putting them in because it's about us. No matter what they did, it's about us as a society.
And so they are part of our society, like
they are.
Not. We need to not turn our back on people. We need to help people. It's when people they're losing their freedom. That's a horrible experience to go through, to lose your freedom when you don't want to lose your freedom, I think. And if you're losing it for years at a time, that's already the punishment. So let's get the rehabilitation be the main focus of this while their freedom is lost. So at least, now they've got all their time on their hands to work on rehabilitating themselves. This is the ideal opportunity to make this happen and use, as you said, the mental health or the psychotherapeutic approach. Yeah.
And I think it really shouldn't wait until prison. We shouldn't wait until crime to get people help. We should be starting all through school. I mean, most kids in school probably could use some free counseling or group counseling. If nothing else, even if you didn't personally need it, a group counseling allows you to then help other people, and for you to be a benefit, which is really beneficial because then when you're, say, not in counseling, you have these tools and they're used to this open type of a communication. So to me,
I understand what you're saying. I don't know if I can fully be on board. I think we need to probably talk about it more so I can understand your approach, because the thing that worries me about it is kids getting forced into it, into group counseling sessions who don't want to be there. So I would be kind of hesitant to create a situation like that as well.
Most of school, most of school, first off, is about education.
Yeah.
So you're forced into it. So group counseling, I don't mean that they have to go there and have to talk about themselves, but they have to go there and have a place where they can talk about themselves.
Well, the resources available. Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. The other thing I think would help, and we're doing this here partly, we're teaching our BC education curriculum from elementary school and high school has been improved over the years, the last decade or so, to include critical thinking skills training being added.
Oh, absolutely.
but it's only a minor injection from what I see, but it's better than none at all, which is great. I would like to see, starting in kindergarten, go all the way up to the last grade of high school, which is in most places grade 12. In Ontario, it's grade 13, the eastern end of Canada. And lucky them, I would have loved to have another year of high school, actually. But I would like to see them teach philosophy, logic, and critical thinking as a distinctive course, and just added to it all. And you can teach kindergartners some basic philosophy, basic logic, and basic critical thinking skills, and you can just keep stepping it up over time. And then this is a natural thing, and we do this, and you watch what happens to our society. My prediction is that we will have much, much higher quality of life for everybody.
I agree.
Chris, you said there was somebody asking something in the chat.
Well, actually, Atheism Works had a question about, real quick, let me just say this. For those of you who are tuning in or not sure, I recently revamped the show, changed to new software. That's why everything looks different. Normally, Andy Hall, he's a writer at Pathos. He's a humor blogger. He would like to come in, but I can't get him in because I can only do 3 at the time. I'm just letting you know, Andy. Tomorrow, after this show's over, I'm going to finish building another thing so I can get 4 people in here. I just haven't been to. So sorry, brother.
Before you ask that question, Damien, what? Tell us about your cat.
I have 2 cats, and I named this one Spirit, and the other one Demon. Not because I believe in them, but as a joke to my religious mother, who used to come over when I lived in California, and she would have to say Spirit and Demon. It just made me laugh. It was.
Okay, I found that question.
Those are awesome names for cats.
Spirit Demon, yeah, that's good. So, I found the question. It was for Damien. What intrigue? This is Atheism Works. He's going back to the Oak Island thing since we're bouncing. He said, what intrigues him about Oak Island are the structures under the water off its coast. He said they're pretty deep, and it's only been 200 years. How does that impact other such sites? If you're familiar with those.
So he's basically asking me about the stuff on the cove. My thing is, I'm interested in the whole island because it seems to me more likely, because of the stuff are different ages which don't work together. I mean, even 10 years difference of like logs, could be 2 different sets of people. Not that it has to be the same one, and they're also not done exactly the same, how the construction is. So I think it's possible that multiple people actually went to this island off Nova Scotia because it looks bizarre. It's easy to remember, and it's also almost directly across from England and France and all those that could have come over, or then were come over, and even Spanish and stuff. So to me, it's like a direct current, straight across from the old world to the new world, and then go down from there, or grabbing gold, going up to that point near Canada, and then going across to England and all that. So to me, and another thing too is they found coins from French, they found coins from Spanish, they found coins from the English. So that already tells you there's at least 3 type of armies or country explorers that are going to this island. It's not a guess; it's a fact because they found artifacts, and that also makes. I feel like everyone who watches the show thinks it's one people did everything.
Oh, right.
I don't think so. I actually think that it's more likely that 3 or 4 different people, and maybe like you said, there could be some pirates too. I don't think they did all that work, but there could be other stuff that you find on that island that don't relate to the other stuff.
Absolutely. Gotcha.
I think that makes sense that it would be efforts by multiple people, especially in older times where tools of automation aren't as readily available as what many of us probably take for granted today. So that makes sense to me. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, so they're seeing all this stuff and they're going, wow, they did here, they did here, they did here. I'm thinking, yeah, I think you got the wrong impression. Like me or Chris were talking about like Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe, may have started at one point by one people, but if you think about it, within 2,000 years, they're making different stuff. Some stuff doesn't even match the old stuff, And like Chris says, how many generations is that? They probably didn't even believe the same stuff.
That's hundreds of. I mean, that's they worshipped at Göbekli Tepe like 1.5 to 2 times as long as the time between now and Jesus.
Yeah,
you know, and this is 8,000 years before Jesus. So the notion that there was one group of people doing the same thing the whole time is not an educated notion.
Right, and that's what I'm saying too with Oak Island. To me, if you really understand history and how things can be different and different people do stuff, it's not as impressive to me to where they're like, oh, somebody did this and that and that and this and all. I'm like, yeah, no, one person didn't go there and have like Treasure Island fantasies and just make the whole thing. I think that's more amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So the chat is unforgiving sometimes. I'm trying to have a hard time understanding Ism's question. So he's okay. So can you guys, either one of you, even see the chat?
No.
Okay, it's on the screen there, but you can't see it. Anyway, so apparently he's talking about how related to many sites around the world, and also how...
No, I don't agree with that.
Yeah,
Oak Island to me is all by itself. I think it has to do with the trade between Old World and New World.
Yeah, and then they're also in reference to how we look and consider how we dig, considering dirt moving around.
Dirt's heavy. Dirt is very heavy.
Well, that is true. And
I don't know what that means exactly.
I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure. No offense, Ease. I'm just having a hard time with it. That's why I said it's unforgiving. I'm not understanding what you're trying to ask, dude. So I think it's maybe like, is this woo technology? Did they have crazy mad technology back here to move the earth? Or
no.
I really don't know, brother. It's not. I don't mean to insult.
But
Ease.
no. But that's the question. So no, it was not aliens. Absolutely not.
And I don't think Ease thinks that either.
Channel saying aliens. I'm not sure his ancestors.
No, but yeah, if someone is saying, I don't know, but if someone is saying that they had some special technology, I don't buy it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Now, because I mean, they have found old things that might be used as tools and stuff. So, but no special technology of any kind has been found.
Okay, and there was one other thing that came up in the chat we were talking about, and then I'll let y'all go on. We were talking about old tattoos. Brother, I forgot. Oh, his True Tech was talking about one of his tattoos. My first tattoo under here, you can't see it. There used to be a rebel flag under here. The rebel flag.
Yeah, I know what a rebel flag was like.
Yeah, most of us do. And it wasn't a very good one. Me and a buddy did it with...
Dukes of Hazzard you're talking about, right?
Exactly. Yeah, Dukes of Hazzard. So we did it with I used to work on VCRs and TV. So I had a motor out of a VCR, a spoon, a pin, the guts of a pin, a needle, and some...
You made your own tattoo equipment.
And we did that. It was horrible. The color never stayed. There was orange there, but all you ever saw was the blue outline of everything. It was horrible. And that was, it hurt like hell.
Do-it-yourself tattoo. I'm impressed.
And I wasn't even in prison. I was just a nerd. But I didn't
some of those guys have teardrop tattoos.
Yeah. I didn't understand what it meant. I was just a kid who, like the Dukes of Hazzard, I was raised up in West Texas. I had no idea.
That was a great show.
Yeah. And then, of course, they weren't racist and ugly on the show. That wasn't what it was about. And that's how
they were nice.
Felt. Yeah. And then once I got out in the world and I saw what was going on, I was like, I need to cover this up. So I did. There we go.
Yeah, that was a fun show.
Yeah, it was. And we're gonna do this one last shot. He says one last time. Things on island buried deep in only 200 years. In respect to other sites, how is this taken into perspective? Are we digging properly deep enough? All right, so let's, if you don't mind, because this is not a big topic for me, but I do kind of have a question that I think we're maybe getting towards, and that's it. This was a hard hole to undig. It took lots of people, many years later with better technology to try to get through this. How did they do it?
Well, beforehand?
And it sounds like he's also asking. Sorry, it sounds like he's also asking if the digging is happening in the right places.
Deep enough?
Well,
are we okay?
Well, as far as why other people didn't do it and they're doing better now, is that they have more construction equipment. They're using more science.
No, we get that. But what the question is more along the lines of, how did Bob, with little more than a shovel and a twig back in 1602, dig this hole and put all those things? That's kind of the thing.
Well, probably multiple people. Could it, like I said, if it was a military and you have 150 people digging, and also to me too, why there's a problem getting to it? It's always been, even from the beginning, was because it flooded. Because they made flood tunnels. They did, like, say, 100 feet to the ocean. So ocean water somewhere is going down into this tunnel. So when you dig down deep enough, it just floods the water.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out how to shut the water off. Again, otherwise, it just keeps flooding.
Along the lines of, why would they do that? Why? There's a lot of time and effort and manpower for.
Oh yeah.
For, like, essentially, it's nothing. It's
I mean, they say they did find one cross that's made out of lead that traces back to southern France at a certain time, about, I think it's 1300s or 1400s, the same time that the Knights Templar and stuff, were actually being disbanded. I'm not saying that for sure that makes it that they were there.
I know.
But I'm just saying it's of the time, and certainly they had a lot of riches, and the King of France at the time was trying to kill them all. Not all of them were killed. It's not unthinkable that they could have gone somewhere and then hid the gold and then just got killed off or died, and they planned on, taking that wealth and, using it, but they ended up being caught and tortured and killed.
Another possibility is that somebody who had command over a lot of people and had a lot of time to do it just had some crackpot idea about digging a hole and finding something.
Yeah. Drinking too much out of lead cups or something. Like syphilis riddled idea going, hey.
But also, remember, this is the route to the Spanish galleons would go up. And there is one thing where in Cuba, the English took over some Cuban ships for Spain that actually had gold, and supposedly they sunk one because they said it wasn't good, and they had two others, and I think that they got to England, but there was a loss of gold, and the thought is that it's possible they went up there, buried some of the gold, and then they went to England, and said, oh, we only captured these ships, and they're hoping to go back and somehow didn't. Or maybe this is another thing too people don't understand. To me, what if they did go back, took the gold out, buried it back with dirt, and then now everybody's digging a hole that's already empty in a sense?
That's what I was thinking. Either they haven't gone far enough, or somebody just went back and got the stuff.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
And the story of gold being stored down there certainly is a lot more exciting than the story of food being preserved down there.
Well, like I said too, if it's military, it could have been cannon. It could have been they didn't want the enemy to get it, so they buried tons of ordnance down there.
Right. Well, we're talking like 90 feet deep, though. This is
crazy. No,
this is lead cup syphilis riddled crazy.
Or another possibility is they started digging a regular hole, and then the ground fell out from below them because there was a big opening.
Yeah,
that's a good one. Yeah.
This would make a lot more sense, perhaps. I don't know.
Well, they have found, like, they had another shaft. I can't remember what it's called now off the top of my head, but they had another shaft, and it actually found a natural hole, a void. So I agree with you. It's not impossible. Also, I think that those are generally ones people don't want to think about, though, because they.
Not as exciting.
Gold. Yeah,
gold is more exciting. Yeah, you can get people to fund your research if they're looking for gold.
That's true.
Right. If they find a bunch of cannonballs down there, they're not going to be as happy.
Yeah, although that'd be pretty cool too. But
I mean, historically, it would still be cool. But I'm not holding out for the gold hoard. I'm thinking that it's very possible that they find something a lot more mundane, but still cool.
Historically speaking, still cool. I would dig in.
Still cool.
Yeah.
That's what
finding a big network of caves would be pretty awesome too.
Yeah. Well, we've got Sci-Fi Saturday where we talk specifically about sci-fi. And you're on the show Friday, Damien. Maybe we ought to make Fridays about archaeology and history. Or
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's your show, so don't ask me. I mean, I love that subject, so
It's ideas. I mean, I don't mind themes. We're growing, figuring out stuff. So,
I mean, ask your audience if that sounds cool to them.
they're all crazy. They ain't right in the head.
Well, they're all going to say no.
Sci-Fi Saturday has a nice ring to it.
Sci-Fi Saturday? You didn't know?
Yeah, it has a nice ring to it.
Oh yeah, you ought to join us for Sci-Fi Saturday.
And then we have Field Work Friday, right, where we do field work for archaeology.
Hey,
there you go.
Perfect.
Well, you know,
go.
I haven't.
I think you've just found your co-host here, Chris.
There you go. I haven't shilled it yet, but Steve McRae is going to be on the show this coming Saturday for Sci-Fi Saturday.
Yeah.
He doesn't know it's Sci-Fi Saturday. I just told him the day. You know, he wanted to go for Saturday because it was later and he could sleep longer.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Steve McRae wants to have a conversation with me about atheism. Apparently, he wants to educate me on what it means. So we're going to have an interesting conversation. I always look forward to learning new things.
Well, you know, yeah.
It's an area that I know quite a bit about.
Well, atheism. Well, but historically, atheism has been used for what we would consider non-atheists as a slur.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
It's basically almost like a heathen or something. But the actual term philosophically, like you were saying, means absent of or lack of belief, or it means a active disbelief. Wow. And people always go, "Oh, well, that's not possible." And I'm like, well, if somebody looks at the evidence and then is convinced that it's not convincing, that's a disbelief.
Well.
Axiology, is right? That's the term that you use.
Well, axiology is a form of value theory or value science. If it's a formal science, I can't do the calculus math involved, so I actually don't do the science part. I do the, in a sense, philosophy part and use it as a tool to evaluate things. It's a way of.
I was reading what you had written about it a little bit, and it looks very interesting to me. What your views on it? So it's a new term. I thought, oh, this is quite good. Yeah, I agree with you that it was used as a slur, as an attack. We've got etymology and linguistic structure,
right,
and different things like that. And I think one term that's often overlooked in all of this is the term anti-theism. And we take a look at the prefixes a and anti. We've got anti denoting opposition, and a denoting absence or without or lack, as the word seems to come up quite a bit. And, I like to keep the terms simple and straightforward because I think we have more clarity that way. I like the idea of atheism just being a classification of not believing in deities because we're free to not have this burden of proof or anything. And what you're doing, you're using some justification, which is why you put that extra word in there to denote that, which I think is fair and the right way to go about it. I have no problem with it. I also don't have a problem with atheism being a polysemous term. Because it is used in many different ways, just like the classification of color. The word color is also polysemous because it's been used in political ways and other ways as well. Yeah. So, and in the area of ethics, it comes up also. It's all sorts of different things. So carry on. I interrupted you there.
No, that's fine. I mean, go ahead, Chris. You had something?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, Steve McRae, there's this... am I an atheist? Am I an anti-theist? I'm an anti-theist. Am I an atheist? Or am I an agnostic? Or am I this or that? Really, I don't care about the titles. Whenever me and Damien talk about it, he has opinions and he'll tell me what I am. Whenever I first come on the internet...
to be just real quick, those things you said could be all together. In other words, you can be an anti-religionist, anti-theist, atheist, agnostic, skeptic. I mean, humanist, all those, they're not like, once you're one, you're not the other.
Right. And see, whenever I'm dealing with Steve, is that my understanding is Steve is pretty passionate about the definitions of atheist and agnostic and this and this and this and this. And technically, I consider myself an agnostic because I cannot actually say I know. Yeah. That there's that whole
that's
argument.
Agnosticism.
Yeah. But the daily agnostic doesn't sound nearly as interesting.
So if
But an agnostic automatically is an atheist, because all it takes to be an atheist is not a mental conclusion, but simply that you do not have the belief. Once you don't have the belief.
I can't fully agree with you on that, because it's see, agnosticism being, and this is the fun part. So, in general, I agree with you, though. Agnosticism deals with knowledge.
Fight.
So you've got, yeah. So do you know about the mystical? Is what Gnosticism talks about. And agnosticism means absence of knowledge of the mystical, but it's typically it's all over the place. Even colloquially, it's used as in the context of deities. So do you know if a deity exists? Do you know about this? And so having knowledge of it versus do you have a belief, kind of an opinion? Are you believing that a deity exists? That's atheism. So because theism itself...
But what I'm saying is an agnostic says I don't know means you do not have active theistic belief. Once you know?
Can you
I'm going to give you a counterexample. Because
unless you're a theist and you have active theist belief, but you don't know.
That's right, exactly. Yeah. So,
yeah, but that shows the agnosticism is an add-on.
But I think what you're getting at is a natural consequence of, for most people, of being agnostic is also not believing.
Right.
Did you say that?
Right. Yeah.
That's where I was trying to get to.
Yeah, I'm not saying that someone can't be agnostic. I'm against the term of agnostic in the fact of how it supports itself, because it makes claims that don't match philosophy. In other words, if something is a belief, and when you know the belief, it's still a belief, but it's now a belief that you know, that you have. What knowing means is you have the textual evidence, the rationale, the reason, the argument that supports what you're claiming. It doesn't stop being a claim. It doesn't stop being a claim that you believe. It just now. In other words, knowledge in axiology is very simple. Knowledge, truth. These are actually value judgments. You're saying I value this thing, and I'm calling it this for these justified or non-justified reasons.
Right.
So what about atheism?
So atheism is very simple. In a fundamental way, it's very simple. Do you believe in any deities? If the answer is no, you're an atheist. That's it.
See,
that simple. That's the only characteristic to atheism from a fundamental perspective.
Right.
Well, I would say not theism is probably the best way to say it. It means not.
That is what it means.
Yeah.
And what is theism? It's belief in one or more deities. You've got monotheism and polytheism.
But here's the tripping point, I think, is that whenever you say agnostic, you're saying, I don't know. Whenever you're claiming to be an atheist, then you're essentially saying you're a Gnostic about the lack of a God. So you're saying
No.
I'm just saying I don't believe it.
If I ask you if you believe that I have a cat, and you don't know me, so your assumption is, well, I can either accept what he states as a fact, or what I can do is I can, hold reserved judgment, which is still not a form of not believing you.
Well, I'm an atheist.
Or I can act, I'm just saying, well, I'm not trying to force people to be atheists. All I'm trying to say is, when you claim things, it's important to understand what you really are. So it helps you understand where you stand. So it's not that I think that people can't say they're agnostic. What I have a problem is when they go to justify it and they say it's because I don't know. And I'm like, well, we don't know that we're alive in reality. This could be a simulated universe. In fact, science often says they don't have truth. And yet we all think of science as like the highest form of truth. And yet if they will say they don't have truth, it's not because they don't have evidence. What they're talking about is the philosophy. Right. So a lot of people think that evidence is more important than philosophy, but science shows us actually it's the other way around. Philosophy is more important than the evidence because they are saying that even with the evidence, they still don't know. They're still just looking at the evidence and trying to make the assumption, the philosophical assumption.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So here's the deal. When I first started doing the atheism stuff on the YouTubes about a year and a half, well, about a little over a year ago, I bumped into Steve McRae debating the Duke, and they were arguing vehemently
Oh,
over
I saw
what's an
that one.
atheist and what's an agnostic. And then after watching this sphere and figured out, people are, if you claim to be an atheist, people will jump on you and go, how can you know? And for that purpose, I've started saying, I'm the daily atheist, yes, but I can't actually say I know. I know. I cannot say I know. And I do that merely to avoid arguments. Merely.
And what I do is
and
I
yet
turn
with
it around.
Damien, it starts a half-hour argument.
And what we're
Because
trying
what I say is I do know. There is no evidence, no valid reason of any kind in any way found in any science or any valid philosophy that promotes theism.
Great. So you're saying it's okay to say you're saying it's okay to say absolutely 100% there is no God.
Well, first off,
I can say that too.
He carries a burden of proof.
Well,
carries a
proof,
burden of
but and I always give it too. I always offer my proof, the justification, which I think is a valid thing. But so, in other words, think of it this way: one
All
way
this to avoid an argument.
No, but I don't think we should avoid this.
This is a good conversation, actually.
No, wait. Before we go any further, though, here's the reason why I say we should avoid that argument. Because I sit here and I watch these two people, both consider themselves to be the atheists, argue with each other all night, and then they did weeks of videos trashing each other. There are mothers. Wait. There are mothers out there letting their children die while they pray instead of taking their kids to the doctor. There are people right out there right now trying to force the do not care, the ability to not care. Oh shit. Force religious laws on our people that will hurt us. Real harm is coming to us while we sit here and argue about whether we're an agnostic or an atheist or an agnostic atheist. That's what I'm talking about. If we're gonna put a battlefront up.
So that's a guilt trip. You're saying
I'm just saying
we
there's
shouldn't
better
argue
fronts
this
to be
because
fighting.
you're saying it sounds like, and I'm not trying to slight your name.
I get you. But
it reminds me of these kind of arguments that come up. People say, why are you promoting atheism when they're starving children in Africa? They're trying to pick my battles for me. Mm-hmm. I'm concerned about those things, but there's not a heck of a lot I can do about it. And I see a problem here that I can work on that can hopefully help people more in the long run. And that's why I'm focused on what I'm focused on.
Well, I can agree with coming up with a list of definitions for what the specific what blah, blah, blah are. So then I can go, this is how I feel, and go look at this list. But to sit there and watch people publicly trash each other for weeks, that's not good.
Well, I think that's bad form.
That's true.
I'm just saying is I think that you bring up a point, but the point that I think me and him, Randolph both agree with is it's not the argument, it's the behavior in the argument and after the argument that's the problem. I mean, I disagree with people all the time, but I don't force people to have to think the way I do.
Right.
What I do is try to offer the understanding of why I think, and make it clear and presentable. But also you go back to like, what's atheism? So I try to do both things. I try to make it simplified for people that, because I agree, we don't have to make it complicated. But that's like saying we don't have to look at all the archaeology. Of course not. I look at tons of stuff to make people's eyes bleed, Yeah. Like, they're like, why are you learning about how animals pooped, And I'm like, well, but that tells what they ate. What they ate tells where they came from. Where they came from tells you the migration patterns of people. When you start to see the domestication, you follow what these animal droppings and what they're eating. It also tells you if they are domesticated because the wear patterns of their teeth change. So I start, and the whole goal of this, you may not know this, Randolph, but me and Chris have our own show we're starting, or is starting to get going. It's called the History Voyagers. Yeah, it's called the History Voyagers. So it's all about archaeology and anthropology and the history of religion. So, but I'm just saying is, I learn a lot of stuff that, say, Chris doesn't need to know. I can just tell him migration patterns happen from here to here. Here's the support. Instead of giving, like I said, following, art patterns, tool patterns, even like they now can get DNA from dirt. There's no one there. There's no artifacts. They now have the ability to find out stuff that's not even available before. Mm-hmm. There's nothing. It looks like just dirt, like what Atheism was talking about. What do we do with dirt? They are doing a lot more to dirt now because they realize dirt keeps the DNA, whether it's fecal matter or urine or food particles or body. We slough off all kinds of dead skin. Yeah. But going back to the thing of the reason it's good to have different stuff is because we have different audiences. And I do think that it's important, even for someone who's scholarly, like I know a lot of stuff about how to explain atheism, but I still think that it's good to try to give it to where all it needs to be is you lack belief or you have a disbelief.
Right.
And I
implore you to try to use the word absence instead of lack to get rid of that implication.
There you go.
Yeah, absence or not theism.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't. Now, first of all, I just want to mention though, I wasn't trying to slight you, Randolph, or anybody.
Oh, I know.
I was
and it's okay if you do. I can defend myself.
I was trying to explain that the reason why I define myself as thus is because of this.
And I want to say that it shouldn't be that we're in a situation where you feel that you have to misrepresent yourself.
Right.
It is unfair to you. You should be free to say, look, I don't believe in deities. That's me. I'm this. And so part of what we're doing with Canadian
but then somebody jumps up in your face and they go, well, you mean to say right here publicly that you 100% know that, and that's the argument I just want to avoid. That's all I want to avoid.
This is the thing. And this is a pressure put on by people who are, it's part of the atheism vilification community's attempt to make atheists look bad. And it's what I am pushing against. And I'm sorry to say it, but Steve McRae is part of that community. He puts this pressure on people, and he's doing a real disservice to the whole atheism community by doing this. And then he goes around and says he's not an atheist. So I'll ask him, what deities do you believe in? He says none. So, make up your mind, fella. But like, he's not making sense because he's got this very narrow idea on what atheism is. And it's excluding the fundamental meaning of it, which is what the polysemist terms will use. I'm okay with people using it in different ways. I'm promoting it as a classification of absence of belief in deities, and that's what I fundamentally want to get out there, because I feel that this helps people feel that it's okay to not believe in something. When they turn around and tell you that you're taking a position that deities don't exist, they're trying to manipulate you. They're trying to say to you that you have this position, so therefore you have a burden of proof, and therefore your credibility is in question. It is not credibility. It is not somebody's. Sorry, Damien, just a sec.
Yeah.
Your credibility is not in question for not believing something. Your credibility, you do carry a burden of proof if you say a deity or multiple deities exist, or if you say they don't exist, if you believe them or whatever, if you want other people to believe the same, especially. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing. So it's okay for you to say, hey, I'm an atheist. And I want more people to feel comfortable doing this. And that's why I'm trying to put a stop to this vilification. And anybody who tries to misrepresent who you are, speak up and say that's not what it means. And point them to this website, defineatheism.com, if that helps, because it lays it all out, and it also talks about the polysemous usage.
Well, and see, I think that's all wonderful. I'm gonna, again,
and you don't want to deal with the fight, and I understand.
Well, no, that's just not the hill I want to die on.
No, that's right. Nor should you have to.
When Steve comes on the show, I've seen some of his stuff. I don't want to sit here and argue the whole time with Steve about what's an atheist and what's not an atheist, and then have him go back and make shows talking about how he and me sitting here make shows about, look at our argument about. I don't want that kind of world. I want him to come on my show and we'll have a fun morning show. Good morning, puppies.
You'll focus on other things with him.
There are things that he and I align with. There's a lot of things we agree with, and you know what? I don't necessarily disagree with him on the atheist thing. I haven't watched it again. I don't really know. I moved on. I got other battles I want to fight. So hopefully,
that's it.
Yeah, you keep saying polysemous. I just want to say this is a morning show. There might be kids listening.
I agree with a lot of stuff he does too. Like, I like what Steve's doing fighting against the flat earthers. I like what he's doing criticizing the Catholic Church. I agree with most of the things Steve does. Yeah. So I'm with you on that. And I totally understand. You got to focus on your show and focus on certain things, and that's up to you because it's your show, and good for you. You should do that. Well, but what I'm wanting to say is, don't feel under pressure to misrepresent yourself as something else just to avoid the controversy. You shouldn't have to be in that position. Right. And this is the kind of stigmatization that I'm trying to counter and correct in society.
And one of the things that I'm trying to do though, when I give a thing, is help others who want to fight back and learn how to say it philosophically correct, so you can defend yourself, but actually avoid any kind of a fallacy doing it. Because as soon as, like I said, it's all about how you classify. First off, philosophy sees two types of things. So one is your psychological belief, which is in percentages, because it's your psychological, how much you trust something. And the other one's called epistemic knowledge. Epistemic knowledge is knowledge that has to come from a source of reliable reason and evidence. So it means how well it's supported. They care about that. So when I make a claim that there is no God, and I know this, I don't use percentages because that's my psychological. You can be totally wrong and be totally psychologically believe something.
Yeah.
So what really matters is not how much I psychologically believe, but how much knowledge I have as far as the evidence. And if we look at the evidence only, then there's no reason for theism. And there's every reason to be an atheist, or even an agnostic, or doubting of some kind, because where is the supernatural anytime? It isn't here. It's not evident in reality.
And I'm sure that lots of people probably reply to you with Pascal's wager, don't they?
Well, but Pascal's wager is a fallacy in the fact that it acts as if there's only one God to choose from.
Yeah, that's right. And there's other problems. RationalWiki .org has a fantastic article on Pascal's wager. They cut right into it. They they don't mess around.
Watchtower Watchers mentioned he said it looks like I want to run away. He's kind of new. He hasn't been watching since the beginning. I don't know if you noticed, Sammy. I've been changing I got new software, and the chat kind of stopped working, so I'm trying to keep the show going while they're talking. So
no problem.
So I was just explaining to one of the watchers. I'm not freaking out or twisting off.
Me and Chris are friends, so no.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I'm just No, our chat failed for a minute, and I had to reload it, so now it's back up.
Okay.
So,
that's good.
Thank you, Sammy, for your concern. Oh yeah, he said it looks great.
From the chat?
What's that, brother?
Are there more questions from the chat?
No, they were commenting on just what you were talking about. Yeah, no questions.
Okay.
Anybody out in the chat have any questions? Are y'all about ready to wrap up, or are you still?
I'm pretty good.
Hurry. I've got another hour to go if maybe I
don't want to be another hour.
No, I don't want to either, but we've done quite a lot here. So
I tell you what, we'll wrap it up at the half hour. How's that? In about 15 minutes? Is that good?
That's good.
Awesome. Yes. Vintage technology. Yeah. So, no, it all looks good.
So you have what are some of the major issues that you're running into? You mentioned the Blitz problem going on a little bit earlier.
Project Blitz
in the U.S. There.
Well, the things that we've had going on with Project Blitz, it's the denial of care bill that they're trying to push in Kentucky, where you can deny people medical care based on your religious beliefs, and it's like doctors, health workers, insurance companies. Anybody pretty much and their dog can deny you care. So there don't seem to be a limit. Well, the thing I keep banging on, the dead horse I keep beating, is this: if you as a Christian roll up on a car accident and you can see there's a couple of clearly homosexual, whatever that means, what makes a person homosexual, I don't know, but you can tell or you believe that they are homosexual, and you're an EMT person, can you go, oh, I'm not going to help this person and call in for more help while these people die? That's the kind of stuff they're trying to push through in Kentucky. And then in Florida, they had the moment of silence bill, which is just a spear tip. It's just the beginning. It was pushed through. It went through. So now in Florida, I think it's 2 minutes or a minute of moment of silence before class starts every day in school. This was pushed through by a right-wing Christian nutbag and his group.
So that one can probably... See, that one can probably be disputed successfully using freedom of expression. So, because when preventing someone from speaking is a violation of freedom of expression, obviously. Mm-hmm. So that should be a pretty easy one to get thrown out in the courts, right? Overturned in the courts, I would think, right. Unless the judges are.
Our courts, I would doubt that.
Yeah. Well, who's going to do it, for one? Somebody's got to get up the political nuts to go up there and actually make that happen. We couldn't stop it. American Atheist was down there trying to make it stop, and they couldn't stop it. But then there's also other states how many states now? I don't know. Somebody out there in the chat will probably know, but there's states out there that are putting In God We Trust, I believe, on the school or all public buildings except schools, maybe. I don't remember. It varies based on the state. Because In God We Trust happens to be our national motto. So now they're going through and pushing this through. It's just one thing leads to another thing, leads to another thing. It's the same group. They've changed their name, but
it amazes me that from my Canadian perspective, that there's so much interest from people to put all of this on public display, on public property all the time. Like here in Canada, sure, we drive by churches and see, and mosques and whatnot, and see their symbolism on their buildings and their lawns and their funny church signs, and that sometimes don't mean what they think it means. But they have, we generally think of it more as kind of a private matter. It doesn't really come into the public too much here. So when we see this going on in the States, it just seems fanatical, you know.
Oh no, it is fanatical. It absolutely is. The goal is actually several things. To me, the goal is to actually, you know, force this almost the Christianity on the people, and also then if you put enough around and then you call it a Christian nation, you can, in a sense, it's self-fulfilling prophecy or whatever, that you do the behavior that then everyone else can claim. See, look, it's everywhere.
Yeah,
well, yeah, you put it everywhere.
yeah,
they love that bandwagon fallacy, don't they? Yeah. So, yeah, it's effective because it's a fallacy. It's you know, everybody could be, but one person could have the wrong idea, and that one person with the right idea would still be right. It just doesn't matter.
Right.
But,
I recently had a Christian come in my chat and argue that since Jesus was pretty much a Jew, just a lowly Jew, and yet now today his message is spread out to, you know, billions of people, that alone should signify that he was real and that he is truly the Messiah.
Well, then Buddha must be real, correct? I mean, because he's now left Asian continent and certainly all over the place.
What he said.
Great rebuttal. Great rebuttal. It just means the marketing machines are working very well, in my view.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the right to refuse health care. Like that sounds to me like
idiot.
Crazy.
It sounds to me like it's designed to fail, because that's so wrong. Like here we have public health care. Mm-hmm. It's run by our government mostly, and it was if you want to know the history of it, look up the name Tommy Douglas. He's a Canadian politician here. When he brought it in, he was met by a lot of resistance from local doctors here. So he brought in doctors from other countries, mainly the U.S., who came here and volunteered to help people to make this happen. So he was a real pioneer. We had this here we've had it here ever since. It's been a wonderful thing. The whole concept of everybody paying into the healthcare system so that everybody can not have to worry about paying for major healthcare problems is a very, to me, an essential part of being in a society, and one of the fundamental.
I agree.
One of the fundamental roles of a government to protect its citizens, and what's really the most beautiful thing about this is we don't know who it's going to affect. And it's almost like John Rawls' veil of ignorance. We don't know who's going to be impacted by future health problems, or they have a physical accident that because they made a misstep on something, because they walked a little too fast or were distracted by something. It could become natural. It could be a bad decision. But either way, they're getting the health care that they need. That could happen to any one of us. So if we're all paying this, we're doing the opposite of gambling. The complete opposite. We're making everybody safer.
You know. Speaking of John Rawls, he actually is an atheist, but he doesn't ever use the term. He calls himself a non-theist.
Yeah.
And whatever.
See.
Yep.
Again.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Mind you, the Magna Carta did have a lot of religious people working on it, though.
Yeah. No, I was just mentioning, John Rawls, the fact that you said, because he made the veil of ignorance, in a sense,
Theory of justice. Yeah.
Yeah, idea. And I was just saying, some people don't know he was an atheist, but he says that he doesn't call himself that. He says, I'm a non-theist. Because he says, I don't want to offend anybody. It's like, which I think is more reason why the word atheist has to be, owned.
It needs to be destigmatized. It needs to be promoted as normal. It is normal. We're born not believing in deities. So we're born fitting the classification of atheism. And there's people out there saying, don't say that babies are atheists. Don't say this. Don't say that. Yeah, go away. This is just a fact we're laying out. We're not going and shoving it in people's faces all the time. But what I am putting in people's faces is that it's normal not to believe in things that you don't want to believe in, or even without a reason. That's it. And that's what we need. And I think it's a shame with political correctness and whatnot, screwing people up to say things like Neil deGrasse Tyson was going around for a while saying that he doesn't call himself an atheist, he calls himself agnostic. But you ask him, does he believe in anything? No, he doesn't. That's what he said, I think, on the 700 Club show with when he was telling them about the stars in the sky are not little lights that can disappear, and people who originally wrote about that stuff don't understand what that stuff is. It was just very interesting. Pat Roberts, that's who was interviewing him. Yeah, that one's a good interview to listen to.
But I do agree with Chris. I'm not saying everybody has to own this, but there's a need to. So I wouldn't debate, John Rawls or get angry that he uses non-theists. I would just say, I would use atheists. And I feel like it's even more important because there's many other people that don't. So
how people want to identify themselves is fine. It's not a problem. The thing is, if you're going to use a certain term and you expect people to understand it incorrectly, you're going to run into difficulty. Right. Because people are going to misunderstand you. And that's when people start saying, I'm agnostic instead of I'm an atheist, then okay, so you're saying you don't know. You're not saying you don't believe, is the typical kind of reaction most people will give you. And that's just one example. There's all kinds of other examples we'd probably give out. There's people who identify as cats or aliens or things like that. And Jedi. It's just, you see them on the internet all the time.
Yeah. So. Yep. I've seen them. Well, again, with me, it's sort of like the same thing with it's just
with John Rawls.
Yeah, avoiding. It's just really, for me, it's just avoiding. I'm really just trying to avoid. So I call myself the Daily Atheist, and if anybody runs at me and they go, hey, wait a second, how can you call it? I'm like, no, I'm actually an agnostic because I can't say. And then I move on because it lets me move on. Again, with Damien, he's the only person who me saying that has actually started, along. Most time that diffuses everything. They're like, oh, okay, you're agnostic, fine. We're on the same team.
It does diffuse things. Yeah. It is. They're conflating atheism with anti-theism when they do that. That's just the way it is. And it's a shame.
And people conflate anti-theism with anti-religionism, which is not true. Anti-theism only is against religions that promote theism. Any religion that doesn't promote theism, you have to be then an anti-religionist.
I agree with you, and I'm finding
all three.
And I'm finding that more people are starting to use the term anti-religion now as well. So that looks promising to me because it means we're seeing more clarity in understanding of our language.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, now I've got more badges and more hats to wear, I guess.
You do.
I always thought I was just an atheist and an anti-theist, but I'm also an anti-religionist, and I'm also a lesbian trapped in a man's body. It's just how it is.
Yeah, I figured that out about myself a long time ago, too.
Yeah. So, you know what, guys? If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and I'm going to kill it now. We'll end the stream.
All right.
You guys are wonderful. Thank you for coming in. I've got links to all your stuff below, so if you want to quickly...
Could you add the Define Atheism link that I put in the private chat here to the YouTube description for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
yeah, well, and I'll get you. I have a link that explains 100 different kinds, or something close to that, kinds of atheism.
Sure.
And it's not like trying to say that everybody has to call themselves this. It's also like could be for you reasons for why atheism is reasonable.
Yeah.
So there's different reasons people. Like scientists comes at it different than a philosopher would. That doesn't mean that either one of those is better than the other. It's just different.
Right.
The reasons.
And I think main thing is my emphasis is not to really debate this stuff. We ended up really getting into it, but I just want to normalize this. Normalize atheism. That's my main goal here, is to normalize it. It needs to be normal, and the reason it gets heated is because there is quite a push against it to promote the stigmatization, unfortunately. Do we get a chance to give final words about who we are?
No, absolutely. Go ahead. That's what I was going to say. You go ahead and...
Go ahead, Damien.
So to me, like I was saying, that there's different ones. So like I'll read. I'll just real quick. I'll just read you some different ones so you can understand what I'm talking about. And I'll just read you the main description.
I look forward to the link. Thank you. Yeah.
So there's, in a sense, there's apatheism, agnosticism, atheism. And then I break it down. There's anti-theism, like I said, but there's also other stuff that people don't realize, like kinds of, in a sense, how or why someone will be an atheist. And that has to do with stuff with like an atheist atheist, agnostic atheist, analytic atheist, anarchist atheist. Like an anarchist atheist, an anarchist in general doesn't want a leader or a king. So a magical sky fairy king is also not something that they would appreciate, whether or not it would be real. And then there's, in a sense, antagonist atheists, ones that basically are like almost like people that want to be against theists for some reason. Anti-clerical atheism, anti-religionist atheism.
This is a long list, right?
Oh yeah, there's more. I have links to all this and links of where I got these ideas from. Apatheist atheist. There's all different axiological atheism, which you said I talk about. And there's emotional atheism. Some people, like their parents died, and then, which is not very common. Theists think that's the only reason we come to atheism. But there are people that get angry, hurt, alienation from their family, mistrust, negative feelings, and then they see that as an extension of the God, issue. Generally though, even if someone comes for that reason, that's generally not we will stay. They generally become more informed and get more of in a sense, an in-depth reason why the justification. But there's empiricism.
Do you have a link we can put in the description for people or something?
Yeah, I just sent it to you.
Oh, okay. I can't see it because the other one. So yeah.
I just want to sum up this whole list you've given me. The one common factor, that one common characteristic I hear coming from all of those is this fundamental absence of belief in deities.
Oh yeah. But I'm just trying to show that there's different reasons people can come to that conclusion.
And I
of
agree.
no deity.
And this list sounds very interesting.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and it's all researched. I have links to all of it. The name of the blog is called Reasons for or Types of Atheism.
I look forward to reading it. Thank you.
It's probably about 50 pages.
Yeah. So
maybe it's 20 pages, but it's a lot.
Closing thoughts, Damien? Closing thoughts?
I would say that I want people to know that it is okay to not be an atheist, and it's okay to be an atheist. It's okay to say you're an agnostic, and it's okay to not say you're agnostic. My point is not that. It's just the philosophy of the justifications of why.
Gotcha. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you very much for hosting on this show and bringing me on here. I really appreciate the time you've given us today. It's a pleasure to meet you, Damien. It's good to see you again, Chris. I am Randolf Richardson. I am the founding president of the Canadian Atheists, and you can read more about the Canadian Atheists and even sign up for membership at www.canadianatheists.ca. And if you want to know more about atheism, you can read about the definition at www.defineatheism.com. Thanks again, Chris. I really found this to be a delight to be on your program today, and I appreciate you bringing me on. Well, this is a great show. Congratulations on the new format.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and we'll have to have you back again.
Okay, I'd be happy to.
I'll hit you up.
Yes, anytime.
All right.
Well, we'll have to schedule, of course, but
of course with the schedule. Thanks to everybody in the chat. True Tech, Yo Templo, Yoism, you guys, Watchism.
Thanks, everyone.
Julie, you guys are all wonderful. Thank you. You guys have a wonderful day, and take care.
All right. Bye.